our hopes to the ground, but we can work it out. 'Cause giving in is oh so hard, but love is at stake. Where there's a will, there's a way. Now if we only knew how, learning to love, learning to laugh and fear, learning to fight through these years that bring us closer together. Learning to love, learning the first golden rule, knowing that anything is possible. 'Cause nothing's gonna keep us from, nothing's gonna keep us from learning the ropes.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. It's IXLJ, the OG. Hopefully you can hear me and see me, because all of a sudden, right before we go on the air, my Wi-Fi went to... Anyways, can you hear me okay, Mike?
I can hear you, yes.
But obviously I have slowed down. There's probably just too much machismo of me to come through this screen, so, you know, it just can't handle it. But anyways, welcome to Learning the Ropes here. Of course, I'm XLJ, the OG, joined by my other brother from my other mother, one Michael J. Duplessis. How you doing, bro?
Good, how you doing, fam?
We're doing wonderful. Doing amazing here on this Thursday night. This kickoff football season has begun. So thank you those
I forgot
for
there was a
joining
game
us.
tonight.
Oh yeah, we got the Chiefs and the Ravens. But hey, we appreciate you joining us here tonight on Cole TV on Learn the Ropes, because we got a great topic. We're going to be talking about some WCW Cruiserweights, the Cruiserweight division. Been wanting to talk about this for a long time. It is one of the greatest and most underrated divisions in all pro wrestling. So it's gonna be a fun show we've got in store for you tonight. But before we do that, as always here on Cole TV, we gotta kick it off with a little plug-a-palooza. And of course, all this week on Cole TV, it's been another amazing week as we have had our replay. You can catch a replay of our Pro Wrestling 60 show, as well as our TNA Emergence vlog, which just dropped yesterday. Of course, you're here with us on Learning the Ropes. And also stay tuned later this week. We will have a all-out prediction show. But that being said, I mentioned our TNA Emergence vlog. It is out available now. If you haven't checked it out, it's pretty awesome. I was able to be there in Louisville last Friday for an amazing show. Matter of fact, I got a little clip here to show y'all. Just kind of give you a sneak peek of what you can expect. So check this out.
Look at that. Look at the definition. Look at the definition. Huh? Look at them quads, baby. Look at them quads. Maybe that's not YouTube friendly, but look at them quads. Oh, yeah.
That wasn't the right clip. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you
That was
definitely
meant for my...
weren't quads.
That was my private collection. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I love Hammerstone. Anyways,
Yeah.
check this clip out instead.
Here tonight for TNA Emergence. Nope. Oh, yeah! Oh, shit. Oh, snap. Oh, God, no way, no way, no freaking way. That rope is going to snap. Yeah! Yeah! See ya!
Well, there you go. You can catch a replay of our Emergence vlog available now here on Cole TV. And as always, you can get some of our awesome merch, our PW60 shirts, our Cole TV shirts, and so much more over on ProWrestlingTees.com. Just look for Cole TV. And, of course, you can always catch Michael and I over on World Championship Wreckage's YouTube channel. Of course, we've got some fun stuff lined up there that will dad hat's going to be putting out here real soon, so stay tuned for that as well. So, well, that being said, my friend, I think it's time we get this party started because we got a lot to talk about here, considering we are talking about the WCW Cruiserweights. And of course, you know, when you're talking about such a fun topic as this, you got to turn to your blood. You got to turn to your family, or should I say, La Familia. So let's bring him on in. First, we have the best-looking man in all of Wrestle Talk, one Pat the Wiseman. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, brother. Happy to be here. I'm a little questioning my choices a little bit after that Hammerstone clip, but I'm still happy to be here.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Trust me.
That
Same
was
here.
like I say,
I almost rolled off the show.
That was fuck. That was from my private collection, so I do apologize, but it's out there. And speaking of lovely and beautiful and talented from La Familia, let's also bring in our other cousin, one Chrissy. Tina, how are you?
Hi, babies. How is everyone tonight?
We're doing
Good.
amazing, other than my
Not
ex-community
bad.
being an asshole, but yes.
Now, just real quick, XLJ for science. I'm not really super familiar with TNA. Who was the dude with the quads again?
That was
Alex
one
Hammerstone.
Hammerstone.
Aha. Okay, just for later.
Yes,
For later.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
The
Google it.
quads. That's what it was.
I'll send you the video afterwards, girl. Trust me.
We'll talk. Also, Zachary Wentz. Like, you
Yeah.
win. Congratulations.
Oh, what a
Yeah,
huge
man,
week for
it's-
him too. By the way, my gosh.
So incredibly proud of Zachary Wentz and the work that he's been doing both on TNA and NXT. He is such a big reason why that Rascal storyline is working with Wes, and it's just really cool to see him grow, and I'm just so proud of him.
Yeah, and I think that's just a lovely segue into this topic tonight because I mean, before there was the X division, folks, it was all about the Cruiserweight division. The Cruiserweight division in WCW was unlike any other. For those of us who got to grow up and live through it, man, it was so good. It was the best part of WCW, even though you had to sit through it was cool because you get like a stupid fucking like segment with the 30 members of the NWO and stuff, and that human piece of fucking garbage, Terry Bollea. But
really
it would
quick,
Yes.
real quick before we do that. Speaking of that, you can go get your "Fuck Hulk Hogan Then Now Forever" shirt at runtheropes.shop. Use the code Wiseman 50%
That's actually a
off.
sick shirt.
Now that's
I fucking love that
Bookapalooza.
shirt.
Now that's Bookapalooza.
I get that fucking shit now. Where was it at again, Pat?
It is at runtheropes.shop. You can use the code Wiseman15 for 15% off. Lovely Padre La Familia. Brian created it. It is an artist depiction of Hulk Hogan wearing a red and yellow KKK hood.
Yeah,
And it
it's
says,
a
"Fuck Hulk
wild
Hogan,
shirt.
then now forever."
It's so fitting for that fucking piece of garbage. But God, fuck Terry Bollea, fuck Terry Bollea, fuck Terry Bollea. Okay, I think I got it on my system.
It's like Beetlejuice. You have to say it.
Right? Yeah. But no, seriously, the Cruiserweight division in WCW was so innovative, so awesome. It made WCW exciting. It gave them a competitive edge over the WWE. I don't care what anybody says, but as far as the 83 weeks where WCW was winning, I think a huge chunk of that was the Cruiserweight division because people was
Absolutely.
like, watch it in the beginning, and you'd be hooked. You would see some of these amazing, talented wrestlers. You're like, yo, I got to check that out. So,
Yeah.
before we get too deep into this, I want to ask you guys, like, when I say the Cruiserweights from WCW, what's some of your first thoughts? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
I feel
Go ahead, Chrissy. No, go ahead while I ponder thoughts.
I'm gonna try and not go obvious because I feel like the top 3 to 4 picks are a little obvious. Billy Kidman was a huge part of the Cruiserweight division for me. This is someone coming into her young adolescence, being a young girl and a wrestling fan, and a lot of things were happening in my childhood. So when long-haired Billy Kidman showed up on my screen, I found myself paying way more attention to WCW.
Who's this white boy? Like,
I mean, listen, him, Shawn Michaels, like Paul London. I had a thing. for a long time, you could kind of peg me from a mile away with the types of wrestlers I would watch. But in all, like all jokes aside, Billy Kidman was incredibly talented. I feel like he was highly underutilized for what he was. But even though as progressive as WCW was, they were still fairly a land of giants. So a lot of their cruiserweight division didn't get highly utilized, like Hunico being one of them. I loved Hunico, once again, person with long hair, I have a trend, but he was absolutely amazing. I loved the work that he did with Ray and with Conan, and they were all amazing. But no matter how futuristic they were in their thoughts of trying to move the company forward, they still kind of kowtowed to the stereotypical big man, big money, big rules situation. So it's kind of unfortunate that, like, the cruiserweight division, I feel like maybe in ECW, I feel like ECW held it for a while, but after WCW left, I felt like not another corporation really utilized their cruiserweight division for a long, long time.
Yeah, perfect. Perfectly said.
That's fair. For me, and again, I'm going to take a page out of Chrissy's book and avoid, probably some of the major topics we're going to talk about. Just like small tidbits and stuff that stick in my head. When I was a kid, I loved the cruiserweights. Watching everybody flip around and do things that you didn't think were possible in a ring were very big to me. And I always loved to watch Alex Wright backflip off of the rope during his entrance. He would come stand on the middle rope and, do his pose, then he'd backflip off. For whatever reason, I was like, yeah, he's the coolest guy ever. Like, he was it. And he got a terrible gimmick after just being Alex Wright. But like that always stuck out in my head. And for all of the flack and shit that people give Bischoff and Russo and everybody who was booking WCW at the time, all of them through maybe happenstance or just maybe thinking we have to get them on the card somewhere at some point, they would always put the cruiserweights on first. And it always gave whatever show a really big boost to start the show because you were going to get something high octane, fast paced, a lot of good stuff like that. Even if it wasn't always high flying moves, with Ray, Hoovy, anything like that, you got a lot of good mat technicians like Benoit and Malenko and things like that. So the cruiserweight division for me, it was a very, very I feel like it was the match to light the firework. Just a lot of the times WCW fireworks were duds. But at least it lit the flame and it got it started pretty well. So just growing up, man, I'm a Latino kid. Majority of the cruiserweights were Latinos. So just getting to see all of them was very important to me and very big to me growing up. And I agree with Chris's sentiment. Once WCW died, it was a long time before we really got a handle and a prominence of the cruiserweights. Of course, they brought the X division in TNA and the Super Juniors in NJPW and things like that. But it just during that time, it was something else, man. There was something about WCW cruiserweight division that just it hit different. And being the nostalgia lovers that we are, you miss it. And I really do miss the WCW cruiserweight division.
Yeah, you nailed it, especially with the, like you said, it was, a firework at first with that, and then you get to some of the other matches on the card, like, not so much. Mike, what about you, buddy? Like, what are some of your first, thoughts when you think of the cruiserweights?
For me, it's you see a lot of those, of course, the guys from AAA, and then you have, a lot of guys from, New Japan come in, an Ultimo Dragon, and then, guys who, weren't utilized that well, or not a lot of people Americans knew, like Damien 666 and Cyclops.
Yeah.
But it's just that was cool. And then later on, you got guys like Prince Iaukea, who comes from a lineage of pro wrestling. And then you have an athletic gift of God, who I think should have gotten a bigger push in TNA, and that's Elix Skipper.
Prime time, baby.
He was great.
Yeah, and he comes in with Team Canada, and he's a wide receiver from the CFL, and he was just pulling off the craziest shit.
Not an ounce of fat on that man's body. Dude, Skipper was sick. But I'm like Pat. I totally I agree with you. That to me, when I think the cruiserweights division, it's it's what it drawed me in to watch WCW. It's kind of like the
Yes.
I got you, bitch, like thing, you know. And then it's like, oh, like some of it, not so much, but it's just like, all right,
That's
you
when
got
just turned to
my
the other
attention.
show.
That's true. That's true. But like, man, the cruiserweight division, god damn, it was so fucking awesome. But let's just dive right into it. And so if we start with like the origins of it, and Chrissy, you mentioned something earlier, like ECW. ECW is a huge part of the success of the cruiserweight division. Think of how many guys Bischoff took from ECW and put them in WCW. Guys like Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, Rey Mysterio, Juventud Guerrero, Psychosis. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. I mean, that was the heart and soul of that cruiserweight division. But Mike, I want to throw it to you here on this one, buddy, because like when we get to the very first cruiserweight champion, I think it's somebody a lot of people don't realize or remember, and I know he's one of your favorites.
Shinjiro Otani,
Yeah.
New Japan Pro Wrestling legend, who made his name in the late 80s, early 90s, doing a lot of tournaments. He was part of the very famous 1995 World J Cup, which had Eddie Guerrero, had Benoit, had Funaki in it, had Ultimo Dragon.
Indeed.
And he was unlike anyone else in the cruiserweight division, especially in the beginning, because you had a lot of people with the fascia gear and the masks and like all this. And this dude was coming in with black boots and black trunks, and he was doing these like very innovative like submission moves. And like he was a technical wrestler. And then he got injured and he retired for a bit, and then he came back in like the 2010s, early 20. Yeah, and then he had a great independent run.
Yeah.
A lot of people forget. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jerry.
No, go right ahead.
I was just gonna go off of what Mike said, that a lot of people forget. People hear cruiserweights, and for some reason, at least the people that I've been speaking to more recently, just assume that it's all flippy dippy stuff. They're all high flyers in the cruiserweight division. The cruiserweights that I grew up on, I believe the ones that we all grew up on, especially in the WCW era, were more mat technicians than anything else.
Yeah.
Like a Benoit, like a Malenko.
Yeah.
And I really do feel like cruiserweights are kind of, once again, highly undersold, because if anyone would be the most well-rounded wrestler on your card, more likely than not, it's going to be someone in the cruiserweight class.
Yeah, because they most of the time travel over the world and take every bit of every wrestling culture they can.
Yeah, and even when it comes to the and even when it comes to the high flying and stuff like that, especially when it came to the AAA guys, to the luchadors and things like that, while yes, they were still doing those things, it was all intertwined in chain wrestling. It was, from spot to spot, from move to move. It was all coordinated very, very well. And as MJ said, it's because they traveled so much, picking up everything. And, a lot of them traveled together in groups. So they were wrestling each other night after night. So they learned each other's style and learned where each other was comfortable with. And so you really got to see that when you got, basically the foundation of the cruiserweight division in WCW, the litany of everybody that we just listed off, like they were going against each other, just one person interchangeable with the other so often that it just became something that they were so comfortable with that they were able to pull off these incredible things, no matter if they were given 3 minutes or 10 minutes. It was still going to be a good match because they were able to be like, okay, we have this much time. This is what we can do in that time. And we're going to make it look good because it's the only amount of time they're going to give us. And so, like Chrissy said, we have the high flyers. We love the high flyers. We love Ray. We love everybody like that. We're not, dismissing anybody like that. But when you got the slowdown, especially when it was a high flyer versus a technician, so when you got a Ray versus a Dean or something like that slower pace was really something that drew my attention because it made me pay attention to the intricacies of professional wrestling and the ins and outs of what moves were being used. I mean, Malenko was called the man of 1,000 holds, holds for a reason. Yeah, I was going to give him 1,004, but that's not Malenko. That's somebody else we'll get to in a moment. But yeah, it's just the slower pace when they would slow things down with, people like Otani and things like that. it was interesting. It was something that grabbed your attention because you paid attention because you had to. It was like, huh, what is this that they're doing? What is this submission that I haven't seen before? That's not a sharpshooter that everybody seems to throw out. Like, it was all of these different things. No disrespect to the sharpshooter or the Scorpion Deathlock. Brett,
We love a
Sting,
good
please don't come for me.
here.
We love the sharpshooter here. We love sharpshooter.
Yes,
Shout out to Brett and Owen. But yeah, yeah, it was you got something good every time, man. It was really, really special.
Yeah, it's like the saying goes, clash or like styles create great clashes. And I mean, that's what you got. Like, you had strong style, you had high flying, you had technical mat wrestling. It was just like a beautiful blend of all these great styles of professional wrestling. And Pat's like, you say, like, okay, we're only going to give you X amount of minutes. It's like, okay, we can do that. And it's just like they put on these clinics, these amazing matches are like 10 minutes or whatever. And it's just like, you know, they come in the back and it's just like, all right, top that. Good luck with that. God, they were just so good.
XLJ.
Yes.
I was looking at the format. I think we do need to talk about that precursor belt.
That's true. Yep, we did skip over that. Yeah.
And the two guys that created that belt and killed shit in 91.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So, like, believe it or not, the Cruiserweight division, in its early stages in WCW, was actually the light heavyweight title. And like Mike said, there was two in particular guys who really defined that title. And, of course, we're talking Flying Brian Pillman and one Jushin Thunder Liger. I mean, the matches those guys had in, like, 91, 92, so ahead of their time.
Yes.
That's
Absolutely.
Another crazy thing for me is that a lot of people don't realize that Brian Pillman had a life outside of WWF. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about Brian Pillman now, and to mention that he had matches with Jushin Thunder Liger, it sounds so archaic. It sounds so out of place because a lot of people are only familiar with the WWF, WWE agenda and history and storylines. But Brian was a cruiserweight at heart. He was a mat tech from jump. He was able to work with people from around the globe because he was one of those specialties. He was one of those well-rounded performers. But it's kind of a shame that he's only remembered for, you know, like the Austin and the gun thing. And it's kind of overshadowed the other places in his career. It's not TikTok. You can say that.
Yeah. I was making sure. I forgot for a second.
We're good.
We're safe.
If I could show Hammerstone's quadriceps up close, then we're good. Trust me.
Listen, I found like 15 veins, Jeremy, like just so close,
right?
Detailed. I need to know what camera do you use, honestly?
The fucking vascularity on that guy. Holy
man.
Pat, this is what you deal with on a daily basis?
Just with me. You should have seen what happened when Trey Miguel followed me. It was 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Feel bad for this man. It was real bad.
That's hilarious. And as Chris was talking about Brian Pillman with Jushin, that was his first like sneak peek into the States.
Yeah, first time really in North America.
Yeah, that was like, and I remember my uncle was telling me like, when they first saw Jushin Thunder Liger, they didn't know what the fuck was happening because he was just like nothing WCW had shown before.
Yeah,
Jushin is such an anomaly. Like he really is. And growing up, it was very funny because I at the time I lived here in South Texas and in El Paso, Texas as well. So I'm very much near the border, and so you go to the flea markets and the swap meets downtown, and they have all of the luchador masks for sale. And of course, you have Ray and Psychosis and La Parka and everybody like that. And then you have this giant 3-horned mask that it was always the only one that was on a mannequin head because it was too big to just let like flop there. And I didn't know this until I think I was around like 15 or 16. So it was long after WCW had gone. But also that the character of Jushin Thunder Liger, he's a beast god in bio armor. That is the manga that his character is, and that just sounds insane. Like it just looks incredible. And they did I believe in 2013 they did basically a revamp of of the manga or of the anime. Looks great. If anybody ever wants to go watch it, check it out. It's great. Tiger Mask makes multiple appearances in that. It's really, really good.
I don't like anime, but I watched that multiple times.
Yeah. I mean, he's the innovator of the Shooting Star Press. He had a match in NXT against Tyler Breeze and was incredible. It was such a good match. And it's like, what? You're not supposed to be this good being this old, Jushin. Like, this isn't fair. But yeah, man, he was so good. I remember getting to what we used to have, and again, showing my age here, maybe some of y'all know what I'm talking about. My dad had a black box when it came to cable. It was, you got to see things illegally. Nobody knows. It's old. Nobody cares. But so we would get to see New Japan matches, and I used to see him versus, his name is slipping me. He wore the samurai mask with the makeup over his eyes. He was paralyzed during a match and he had to retire. I'm trying to remember.
Hayabusa,
yes.
Hayabusa's a god.
Yeah, watching Jushin versus Hayabusa Saturday morning when you're 9 years old, it's the most incredible thing in the world. When you're 9, like, you don't believe that these guys should be able to do the things that they do. And yeah, like, the first time I ever saw a Shooting Star Press was from Jushin, and I watched it happen. And I was like, what was that? Why? One more time. Like, of course, this is before DVR and anything like that, so I couldn't rewind, but best believe I was, I immediately went outside to my trampoline and was trying. Didn't work very well. Landed on my head a bunch. That's probably why I am the way I am now. But I still tried. I still gave it a shot.
And the origin story comes out.
This is all your fault, Jushin. I blame you.
But seriously, if you look at Liger, you look at Pillman, I mean, if those guys walk, then those guys walk so the rest of the cruiserweights could run later on here in like 96 and stuff. But like, so innovative. So you hear the phrase ahead of their time, but they really were. They really, truly were. But I think when we're talking the cruiserweight division, I don't know about you all, but the first name that comes, one of the first big stars of the cruiserweight division, we got to talk about the man of 1,000 holds, one Dean Malenko, as he was the second ever cruiserweight champion, dethroning Otani. And I really feel like Malenko is the guy that really put that title on the map. I mean, Malenko, just such an incredible technical wrestler, and like, the man could go like any freaking style like you throw at Dean Malenko. I mean, we know how good he was in ECW, but it was just like, I felt like in WCW it was like almost next level. And I mean, I know Malenko kind of got pigeonholed into that cruiserweight decision, or you could say cast type almost. But I mean, he, to me, outside of all of the amazing luchadors, like, Dean Malenko is one of the first guys I think of when I think of the cruiserweight division. Like, guys, tell me some of your favorite thoughts or on Dean Malenko.
Like, for me, Dean was always guaranteed in that era, at least, to have some form of success because he was extremely marketable for that division. He looked like the everyman. He wasn't a specialty wrestler. He didn't have super crazy gear. So you always need that character that's kind of blue collar obtainable for your fan base to be able to like resonate with. And Dean Malenko was definitely that for the cruiserweight division, especially when they started getting like the quote unquote like pretty boys, like Billy Kidman, like Juventud, even Ray when he was unmasked to a point. But Dean was a beast in a sense where not only was he good in ring, but even now we know he's had a mind for the business the entire time. I believe he's still working backstage for WWE.
Yeah,
he's been there for a minute. He's overseen some of the better storylines in the last, I would say, decade. And the fact that he's had hands in things like the Radicals and things like helping out with the NWO when they started pulling in more of the Latin demographic with their picks.
He's in AEW.
Oh, it's in AEW
right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Dean's had a mark for the business since day one. So he is one of those amazing examples of a wrestler that anyone he touches turns to gold. He can lead a match backwards and still have the other person looking like $1 million. Not everyone can do that. Even in this day and age, it's very rare to find someone that can work with anyone and make it work. Dean Malenko is the probably first and prime example of that. And the fact that we wouldn't have any of the kinds of wrestling that we would have now if it wasn't for a mat technician like Dean Malenko is absolutely insane to me.
Yes. And to talk about what Chris was talking about, him having such a hand in pro wrestling and him having a mind for it, not a lot of people know this, but Malenko comes from a family.
Yes,
like a
yeah, he
wrestling
does.
family. His dad, Boris, and his mom, Jody, were wrestlers in the 50s. He had a brother named Joe he tagged with in the 80s in Japan. So like it runs in his blood. I think that's why he's such a good wrestler and he takes it so seriously. He's someone who it was blazed in him to, be a professional wrestler. I think he had no other choice.
Yeah, but thank God for that, man. And like I say, everything, like Chrissy, everything he touched, everything he did, like it turned to freaking gold. It was like so freaking good. I mean, I want you to keep this in mind, folks. Like in the attitude era, right, where you have some of the top stars. We are talking Stone Cold, The Rock, Undertaker, Macho Man, DDP, all these amazing talented wrestlers. Think about this. 1997. The number one ranked wrestler in the world, according to Pro Wrestling Illustrated, was Dean Malenko. That's how fucking good Dean Malenko was. Like if that doesn't tell you anything, then I don't know what will. But I mean, my God, Dean Malenko was so damn good.
He was so fluid. Like everything that he did in the ring, it looked like he did it with almost no effort. Like again, we as we've spoken, like it's just ingrained in him, and so he was so smooth with every little transition, with every hold he would do, and he did it with such a he wasn't a talker, and that's not that he couldn't talk. We saw when he got the strange James Bond-ish gimmick when he went over to WWE that he was capable of cutting promos, capable of being on screen and things like that. But it wasn't something that was needed for Dean. Like he'd come to the ring, straight business on his face, and the bell would ring, and he would just go. And he was just. It was funny because he just kind of looked like a typical Mexican dad. Like he looked like he was like he got off of work at the factory and just was moonlighting as a wrestler and was just happened to be extremely good at it. And that was fine. That was my dad was a big Dean Malenko fan. He wasn't a big fan of the High Flyers. He didn't hate them, but he was like, man, I like those guys. He's like, but I'm a Dean Malenko guy, and so I had a great appreciation for Dean growing up. And the storylines that he was involved in. Again, we're probably going to get to some of them. The notes are blanking in my head, and I'm doing this on my phone, so I can't look. But yeah, he did.
I did.
He did.
It was the very first thing.
You shoot your shot every time we're here, XL. Every single time, shoot the shot.
Yeah.
Hey,
we're gonna wear him down by the end of the season.
You can't blame a guy, can you? Just saying.
$50 is $50. Anyway.
On sale, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And not a lot of people realize how long his career was.
Yeah.
He started in 79.
It's crazy to think. Like he wrestled throughout the entire.
Retired in 01.
Yeah. It's crazy.
So
like that man.
2 years. Yeah.
So he gets to the height of his wrestling career, like really towards the end of his wrestling. It was just crazy to think. Like he was at his best. But that all being said, as great as the Iceman was, maybe, arguably, the greatest thing that the Cruiserweight division ever gave us is the man who is a national treasure. This man is one of the all-time great professional wrestlers. And yes, we did see him in ECW, but to a massive audience, the entire world was introduced to one Rey Mysterio Jr. I mean, God, what more can it's Rey Mysterio Jr. He's one of the GOATs. Like, he is easily, you can argue and say he may be the best lucha libre wrestler of all time. Now, some will debate that, I know, but still, it's Rey Mysterio. Come on. Pat, I want to ask you, like, what as a little kid, the first time you saw Rey Mysterio, like, what went through your head?
I saw myself because of Ray's size. Like it was something like, well, if someone this small is able to do these amazing things, like again, being a child, you look at those things like, well, if he can do it, I can do it. Whether I grow up to be big and Kevin Nash size or not, like if I grow up to be small, I can still be great at this because as wrestling fans, if you're a I hate to use the term mark, so I always just say if you're an above average wrestling fan and you have not fantasy booked yourself as a professional wrestler at any point in time, you're not a real wrestling fan. You're just not. Plain and simple. So as a kid, just seeing the things that Ray did and the colors of his masks and his gear, and even when he was unmasked and he was wearing the horns and doing the filthy animals thing, like he just seemed like somebody that he was. For me, he was the first cool wrestler to me. Like, yes, of course, Shawn and Stone Cold, like they're badasses. Like, and that's how we saw them. They were these larger than life characters that were, leaps and bounds better than everybody else as they, should have been marketed as. But to me, as a kid growing up, Ray was the first cool wrestler that I ever was, ever laid eyes on. And I have followed Ray's entire career, even when he, took his hiatus from WWE and did his New Japan stuff, his AAA stuff, his Lucha Underground stuff. Like Ray he wears the gear that he wears now says gloat for a reason. Like yes, you can make the conversation with El Santo and, La Parca and Blue Demon and Penta. You can make a conversation for whoever you want. But there really isn't a conversation to be had if you're talking luchadors that have personified what true, lucha libre wrestling is over the past 40-ish years.
Yep.
It's Ray, and there's no other. Like people who don't even watch wrestling, you can show them a picture of Ray's mask, and they'll be like, "Oh, okay." I don't know the name, but I know the mask. Like WWE could buy the moon and slap 2 falcon heads on it and sell it back to NASA at a profit. Like that's how marketable and how good Rey Mysterio is. And that's how he's always been. From the second he stepped foot in front of a major Western audience's eyes, he drew attention as he should have. And he made sure that whatever time he was given, he was going to make people pay attention. He didn't have to be larger than life. He didn't have to be Hulk Hogan. He didn't have to be Kevin Nash. He was going to be great regardless.
Yeah, he is one of there is only a select, and I mean a select few pro wrestlers who transcend into pop culture. Like it's only a handful, and Rey Mysterio is easily on that list. It's like you say, Pat, you see the Rey Mysterio mask, like even a non-wrestling fan, what this is. Like, Chrissy, what were some of your thoughts on the greatness that was and is Rey Mysterio Jr.?
First of all, Pat, everything you said, incredibly on point, like ridiculously so, like emotionally jarring almost, because as Pat said, he saw himself. And even though Pat and I are two different types of Latin, Pat is Mexican, I'm Puerto Rican, I grew up in a Latin neighborhood and we were all mixed, and it didn't matter what kind of Latin kids you were. If one succeeded, we all succeeded. That's kind of the mentality it was. It still kind of is. And no matter where I went, there was a Rey Mysterio mask on a bomber jacket or a white t-shirt or something. Ray is so ingrained in our culture, in the culture, in street culture. It's moving. That someone was talking about it online. Someone asked if Rey Mysterio is as much of a household name as Undertaker, and they didn't believe he was. And I said, well, you're going to the wrong households. Because legitimately, like Pat said, you could flash Rey Mysterio's mask signal up like a bat signal and people will know who it is. He's influenced kids all over the globe. To this day, I still think he's still one of the biggest merch sellers in terms of like the young children age groups, just for the masks alone. When he did work with Lucha Underground, he was able to get a little bit of like the cuffs off of him and he was able to work more freely. So he was still able to show that he was able to do that real high fly daredevil stuff he never lost a step. He never lost a step. Rey Mysterio is one of those ones where I talk about him and I get goosebumps because it's not just a regular wrestler. It's not just a person. It's almost like Santa Claus. Like Santa Claus isn't a person, but it's an idea. Like Rey Mysterio at this point has so far past his physical form that now he's in almost like a lore status. Like kids will be telling their grandkids stories about Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. He's gotten to that part so much where he's almost like methodical. And that's what I appreciate so much is that in the upper echelon and the Mount Rushmore of wrestlers, no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what you like, more likely than not, a small Latin man is going to end up on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling. And more likely than not, it's going to be Rey Mysterio. So just knowing that no matter where this industry goes, me as a little brown kid, Pat as a little brown kid, Pat's kids, the kids all over out there that look just like us will always know that there's someone that's held in such high regard that looks like them and that came from a similar place where they came from. And they can never take that away from us. And that's because of Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, that is poetic. Like, yeah, everything you said. Oh, yeah, you talk about goosebumps. I got goosebumps, man.
Yeah,
like,
and I don't want to follow that up. Either of these two. This is no.
I'm so sorry.
That is unfair because it made me cry. Because it actually made me tear up. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my.
Yeah.
And XLJ, come on, you can't put the white boy after two Latin kids talking about a Latin. You kind of set him up from there.
No, he did. He set me up.
yeah.
Well, fun fact, because we just talked about him. Do you know who Rey Mysterio's first match in WCW was against? Dean Malenko.
I thought it was Dean.
Yeah, in 1996.
Yeah, that was one of the greats too. And I'm glad you brought that up because we were going to talk about some of the matches and stuff, but that's definitely one. To me, I think the importance of those two working together, they elevated each other so much so, like it was just like what Dean Malenko was doing in the Cruiserweight division. It was fun, it was cool, but like when you brought in Rey Mysterio, it was like holy shit, this is like next level.
Yeah,
and that matchup at the Great American Bash. Division. Oh my God, yeah.
He made everyone work hard.
But yeah, I mean the greatness of Rey Mysterio, you can't put into words just like how amazing, and the fact that man is still going to this day, and he looks just as great as ever. Like Rey Mysterio is a national treasure. That man can do no wrong. Like, and if you think about it too, you think about like a lot of wrestlers in history. You think like at points in their career, they've had like, you know, some down moments, matches, storylines, whatever. Honest to God, I can't think of one real bad instance like with Rey Mysterio was involved in anything. Like, I mean, the man is just so damn good. Like even he can take chicken shit and make chicken salad. You look at when
I was gonna say he was definitely a bright spot during that No Limit Soldier storyline.
Yeah. And he loses the mask to Kevin Nash, which is a stupid fucking decision, but that's another story for another time. Like he made it work. Like, I mean, the stuff Rey was doing was awesome. You know, some of the amazing matches he was having with Kidman at that time frame. And like you say, with the stuff with the No Limit Soldiers and the freaking West Texas Rednecks, as fucking cheesy and terrible as that was, still Rey Mysterio, like he was just amazing through that. The stuff with the filthy animals, you gave little Ray, you know, you give him the little horns and stuff, but still, like he made it work.
That gave me hope because you had unmatched Rey Mysterio running with a Tori Wilson, a baby Tori Wilson. So that gave me hope that I could pull anybody, because like he sold me on that false promise that I could be short and just slightly athletic and I could just pull a Tori Wilson. And it's also, and in terms of what Pat said with his dad, with Dean Malenko, my father was the same with Rey. My father grew up with my grandmother watching old school wrestling, like golden era wrestling, to try and help her learn English. And my dad grew up loving Junkyard Dog, and he loved Junkyard Dog because
That's my dad's favorite wrestler.
I don't know what it is about parents and loving Junkyard Dog, but
that's from New Orleans. That says a lot.
Yeah. He was like, hey, Junkyard Dog was never a bad guy. He was always a good guy. I like that about Junkyard Dog. He never turned evil. And that was something, my father's very old. My father doesn't remember everything. He wants to think that. I'm going to let him have it. The PTSD is a lot from, Sandstorm.
He was a heel in Canada.
It's Canada. We don't count.
It's Canada.
It's Canada.
When he worked for the Hearts, ironically, when he worked for the Hearts.
But it's wild that Rey is the Shawn Michaels of Lucha Libre. Like Rey is your favorite's favorite. Like I guarantee you, if you poll every luchador in the world right now on who they think is the most influential person, it's gonna be Rey. Like you have and like even him and Eddie didn't really run in the same circles, because like they want to say that Eddie was a luchador, but Rey was a high flyer. Eddie was tech. Eddie was math. So for like Rey Mysterio's little piece of the sky, there's no one touching him. Yeah. And like you said, he's still running with his son now. He's bringing up the younger ones like Santos Escobar and Zelina Vega. Like, I'm so sorry. You could do worse than to learn from Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
For free.
Yeah,
like I would pay for that.
Yeah, with Rey being Rey, and that's the thing that like you notice when you keep coming to when you talk about Rey Mysterio. You can say all of these things, you can pick up a thesaurus and come up with as many descriptive words that you can, but at the end of the day, the best description is Rey is just Rey. Like that is the description in and of itself, because he was that great. And you can, again, like Chrissy said, you can ask, but you don't even have to ask luchadors. You can ask Ricochet. You can ask Will Ospreay. You can ask these people who influenced them in the early days of watching wrestling, and Rey is going to be the answer. Like, it's when you have somebody that transcends that much wrestling for that long, or for this long, because he's still doing it. Like, there are reasons why when he had that like brief appearance at NXT, whenever he was talking to people were freaking out whenever Rey would go and talk to them, because he's that important to not even to just Latinos. He's just that important to wrestling. And he everything that he did in WCW, in WWE, the losing the mask but still being great, the terrible situation where the wrestler passed away in the ring with him, like he's still great. Like, as Jeremy said, like there's not really any low spots for Rey, because he's just continued to elevate himself. I can't really think of anything I don't like about Rey Mysterio in his career. Take that back. The mohawks on the mask was never a fan. Everything else was great. But yeah, man, like the music, the re-debut in WWE, the everything, it's so good. Everything he does is so good, and it's almost confusing and confounding to me when everyone talks about their favorite wrestlers and you get the Shawn Michaels, the Stone Colds, the Hulk Hogans, and things like that. But I don't know how people don't, even if it's just like an honorable mention, I don't know how Rey Mysterio isn't there. Like, he's that important to wrestling that he just deserves to be.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, like the man has transcended time itself. He could easily be on anybody's Mount Rushmore. There's no argument. Like, in my opinion, like I say, he's one of the guys that has transcended pop culture. It's Rey Mysterio, man. Like, come on, it's Rey Mysterio. But one thing I love that we've talked about here is like I say, these different styles, these different areas, these different territories. Think of all these other great cruiserweights. and all these different other countries they represent. Like, we did mention Canada, so I guess we kind of got to talk about them for a minute. But shit, they produce some pretty damn good talent. I mean, regardless of the man, what happened later on, still Chris Benoit and the stuff that he was doing in WCW was incredible. Like the physical style he brought to it, like the stuff that he was doing. And I mean, he was another one guy too that really kind of transcended from being a cruiserweight wrestler into working like a heavyweight style. You could work Benoit against just about anybody, and it was solid stuff.
The program he did with Triple H and Shawn Michaels is probably one of my favorite programs, just point blank period. And it goes to show just how impactful wrestling can be, because we loved that man for decades. We loved that man to the point where it felt personal that we couldn't talk about him in that light anymore. A lot of people had difficulties not being able to talk about him in that way anymore because they were so emotionally attached and invested. And that's what wrestling can do. Wrestling can touch you in a way where something in the real world can happen, and it makes you question your own morals because you don't want to go against the thing that you love because you feel like it's a personal call out. That's how insane, and that's when I realized how impactful wrestling can be. Because we all felt something when we realized that we couldn't talk about that man the way that we really wanted to ever again.
Yeah.
He has his accolades, as you said, but we have to, like check ourselves in those moments and be like, how much do I give him his credit for, I'm
going to keep it 100 with y'all. Chris Benoit was my favorite wrestler growing up. And when what happened, like it shattered my heart. Like it was so bad. My love for pro wrestling. I had to stop watching for a couple years because it broke me that bad. Like just the amount of respect and loyalty and love I have for that man and what he did in that ring was, man, it's still hard to talk about, 15 years later or whatever it's been. But yeah, you nailed it on the head, Chrissy. Like seriously, it's crazy how this just are. I can't even talk. I'm sorry.
And I totally get like what you mean. Like we're all adults, and we're all kind of have reached the general consensus that in most level-headed wrestling circles, Chris Benoit's persona non grata. But doesn't mean you can't appreciate what that man did and what he was to the world of professional wrestling from that date back. Because again, we're not going to get into that whole spiel. That's a whole other topic for a whole other story. We would be here all night. We're not going to do that. But what Chris Benoit was able to accomplish and was able to do in the ring, and the respect and revere that he was able to bring in for himself was it's something that you can't duplicate, because he was great, almost confusingly, because when you looked at Benoit and the stockier statue, the short shoulders, everything like that, like he was able to do so much so well. And again, when you put him against anybody, it was Eddie, Ray, Dean, anything he did, and then when he moved over to WWE and he was against the heavyweights like Triple H, like things like that. Like I was the empty Raw show the day of his passing took place in Corpus Christi, where I live. I was supposed to go to that show. It ended up being canceled. Me and my dad were supposed to go. It ended up being canceled. They ended up doing the empty arena show, regardless. But when it happened, and even now, again, 15 years later, or however long it's fucking been, like when anybody mentions Chris, I choose not to be like, oh well, we're not like, I'm just like, yeah, man, like he was great, and that's where my conversation stops. I don't want to get into the intricacies or the conversation of what took place, because it's not my place. It was what happened was tragic, and no one's going to dispute that. But what happened doesn't immediately erase his legacy, and it shouldn't erase his legacy. You don't have to. He doesn't have to go into the Hall of Fame. I don't think he will. You don't, but that doesn't mean that you can't be appreciative of Chris Benoit, the wrestler. You still very much can be. I'm a huge proprietor of that. I am a fan of anything that Chris Benoit did when he was on screen from 7 to 9 p.m. on Monday nights or 6 to 8 on Thursdays. Whatever day SmackDown was on.
Thursdays on UPN.
Jesus Christ, UPN. Anyway,
The best version of SmackDown.
yes, like he was incredible, and that's very, very much one of the only words that I can choose to describe Chris Benoit in the ring. He was incredible, and that's how I want to remember Chris Benoit, and that's how I choose to remember Chris Benoit. Anything else, that's a conversation for a whole different topic. But if we're having a conversation about wrestling and you bring him up, I'm going to talk about how great he was in the ring, because he absolutely was. And again, you can say what you want about what happened after, but it doesn't mean that his legacy is completely tarnished. He was incredible, and I was a huge Chris Benoit fan growing up.
They call you the wise man for a reason, my friend, and like those were very. It's a great point of view to have, in my opinion, and it's a great way to sum it up on the late Chris Benoit. But I mentioned Canada. We got to talk about this man, because he's still going strong today, whether you love him or hate him. Hi, guys. Let's talk about Chris Jericho.
I can hear
The
Richie
man-
off in the distance.
Right. There was a disturbance in the force with Richie Mars somewhere. Because Dean was great. He was the man of 1,000 holes, but Chris Jericho was the man of 1,004.
These are facts.
Ugh.
He had a list. I mean, and we know the man makes lists. I'm just saying.
Oh, Jesus, believe it, Chris Jericho.
I will start on Chris. So, opinions aside, love, hate, whatever you want to say, I think that Chris Jericho deserves so much recognition for being able to constantly reinvent himself at the drop of a hat, because most wrestlers go through different points and periods in their career and things like that. But I think Chris is one of the very few that you can sit there and say, you can have a conversation with somebody, a wrestling fan, and you can ask them, what's your favorite version of Chris Jericho? And there are multiple that you can choose from, starting in the Cruiserweight as the Lionheart, like the tough sticking out ponytail thing, the Spinal Tap entrance when he was making fun of Goldberg. Like, he was so good in the Cruiserweight division. The match with Dean Malenko dressed as whatever luchador he was fake dressed as with the reveal.
The Battle Royal, where
Yes.
Dean Malenko is a Cyclops, and then the mask reveal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
And that
good. Super Bowl
it's so
1998. I watched
yes,
it.
and it's so good. But what a lot of people don't remember or don't realize about that, because that the reveal got a huge pop. It was great. It was but what a lot of people don't remember about that entire feud is, for the weeks leading up to it, Chris Jericho led that feud completely on his own. Dean was out. I believe he was mourning the death of his father.
Yes, he
if I'm not
was.
mistaken.
Forrest had just died.
So he was off TV. Yeah, so he was off TV, and Chris Jericho just ran. Like, I am going to make this feud as important as I can. I don't care if he's not here. He did the same thing with Goldberg. He tried to get a match out of Goldberg completely on his own. Like, he was the first, like, what's the right word? I hate to use the term chicken shit heel, but like, he was the first, like, goofy heel that I remember seeing. Like, he would start matches on and wouldn't take the belt off. Like, the first 3 minutes of the match, he'd still be wearing the title, which was hilarious to me. Like, Chris was, again, we can say what we want about now and the Jericho vortex that's, sucking dry the new talent at AEW. But Chris was great, man, and he really kind of always has been. He has a great mind for the business. And to see where, if you go back and you see where it all kind of blew up and started from in WCW, Chris was great. I don't want to give the man as much, flowers as I am giving him now, but as I'm sitting here just giving this entire description, I'm like, I fucking love Chris Jericho, man. He was so good. He's so good.
He was, if you think about it, he was the first one in this division to really kind of create unique storylines. This was like, people wanted to tune in because they wanted to see him get his ass beat, right? I mean, Jericho, like the stuff he was doing there in '98, was incredible. And yeah, I agree, Best Scout. See, I got Best Scouts in your corner too, buddy.
Stop it.
BGM knows. I'm sorry, Mike. What were you gonna say, buddy?
I was just gonna make a joke that and Jericho brought us one of the greatest managers ever in Ralphus.
Oh God,
sweet mother of God.
Jericho's security, Ralphus. God, Ralphus was. Oh man, I love me.
And honestly, one of the coolest shirts ever in the WCW is Jericho shirt.
I have that shirt. I should have wore that tonight. I wore it the other night though. Damn it, I forgot.
It's a sick shirt. I always wanted this shirt as a kid.
It's pretty awesome.
And now it's $50.
Ralphus was the only thing I can ever think of when it comes to Ralphus was he was in a hardcore title match with the Big Wiggle, Norman Smiley, and Vito and Big Vito.
I forgot
and like Big Vito, who there's like a spot where he's like supposed to give someone a trash can lid spot, and it's just the softest like hit, and Vito completely no-sells it and punches him in the face. I was like, Jesus, like this. Apparently he was like a production truck driver that Jericho just met and thought would be funny. And he's like, you want to come be my manager for this? The guy's like, yeah, I'll totally do it. Like, and he was a staple in WCW for like a year and a half. It's like, what are you doing?
You gotta get the raise somehow. You gotta get the promotion somehow. And honestly, you know what? Shoot the shot. Like, what's the like he got punched in the face.
Love
extra money is extra money.
I love Jericho's impression of Ralphus too. Like, oh yeah, sure, I'd love to do it. That'd be great.
Yeah,
well, Christy, I noticed you've been a little quiet there, not really talking about.
I'm just enthralled.
The Ayatollah of rock and roll.
You also now know how our group chat goes, where it's Pat just like schooling me for hours, and I'm like, cool. But I do it with pleasure because I do love listening to you guys speak. Like, it's nice absorbing information. And that's the thing with wrestling. Like, you never really know everything. There's no way you can know everything. When you start thinking you know everything, that's when you're the idiot, you know?
Sorry, Pat made me laugh. That was funny.
See, he pulls focus even here. Like, it's wild. My God. This is supposed to be like a safe space. And he's still pulling focus. But like with Jericho, it's wild for me because he's kind of turned into the thing that he hates the most. Because we all remember the issues he was having with Goldberg and with Bischoff and with everything else. And now he's that person in AEW.
Yeah.
And it's wild to me. It's absolutely insane that someone that it's almost like I feel like CM Punk has Jericho syndrome, where they started off as the voice of the voiceless. They started off as like the Rage Against the Machine, and now they are the Machine. So just seeing Jericho's career start from like the babyface, glass of milk, white bread, like Lionheart, to how he's felt about now from the same fans that loved him when they were children. It's wild that, you know, just like a couple of life decisions can completely turn your life around, either for better or for worse. Patrick mentioned it beforehand, the vortex that is Jericho with these new younger talent in AEW, where no matter how much they have the opportunity to be helped, Jericho just almost seems like he refuses to do it. And we all know that Jericho is a GOAT. We all know that Jericho is Mount Rushmore material, and it's not a question. But he's still fighting for camera time like he's green. He's still fighting for camera time against these young talent, against these quote unquote kids, like he's their competitors. I'm like, I'm so sorry. No, you're the Goldberg at this stage in your life, buddy. That's what it is. I can appreciate you all I want to. Very similar, like what Pat said with Benoit. Like, you don't have to like the human, but you can like the character. I love Jericho, the character. Jericho debuting on WWF Raw against The Rock is probably one of my favorite segments ever. Jericho's original theme song is still probably one of my favorite segments, like favorite songs ever for a theme. It's in my Spotify yearly roundup every year. I love Break the Walls Down. To the point where like even Jericho still to this day doesn't know what the lyrics are to his own WWF song. It's wild. Like he never just thought to look. But like that's what bothers me with Jericho. Like, we all know he's great, but he's a villain in real life. So it's like, oh, like I want to love him, but like every time I see him say "Hey guys" with like the veneer teeth, I want to punch him in the face. The fact that his body looks like a Ken doll and not in a good way, like it's just all like hard tan plastic with no like discernible like six-pack marks. It's a hard stomach, but it's not defined. I don't feel comfortable. I feel like I need consent to look at Jericho shirtless before he gets on my television screen.
So what I'm hearing is that due to the learning tree, you will never look at Chris Jericho the same again.
Beautiful.
We had this joke in our head.
For 3 hours.
I'm very happy that we had the same joke in the head, and I'm happy that you said it because
he's like, just in case it didn't land.
We're right here. We're right here, MJ. We're right here.
It's like Pat's one of my favorite people.
Very well deserved.
You had some great Canadian cruiserweights, but next up, I want to talk about this guy. Because honestly, this is my guilty pleasure. This is probably my favorite WCW cruiserweight, and there was some great Japanese wrestlers, but there was only one, Ultimo Dragon. I love Ultimo Dragon. I mean, just the badassery of a dude coming in with 9 championship belts. He had the Super J crown, which is crazy because when you think about this, Mike, I know you're big on the history of this stuff. Like one of those belts was actually the WWF light heavyweight belt.
It's one of my favorite pictures ever is him holding every cruiserweight and light junior weight championship belt in the world. And he never wrestled for the WWF. Well, he did in the 2000s, but nobody gives a fuck about that run.
Yeah, we don't talk about that. But yeah, seriously, Ultimo Dragon, when they brought him in, it was just like, I think when they brought him in, it wasn't just like I don't think they really had any plans for him other than like, okay, this guy's pretty good, he can go. And then like just he got fucking over. Like just because he was so damn good. And you talk about some great matches he had with a Rey Mysterio Jr., with Dean Malenko. Like he etched his name right in there with those guys right out of the gate. Chrissy, like I want to ask you, like, do you have any favorite memories or thoughts on Ultimo Dragon?
Ultimo Dragon is someone that my brother adored growing up. We were not allowed to watch WCW in our house. We were very painstakingly a WWF family. It was almost like trying to sneak like Cinemax porn after 11 o'clock. Like that's how dire it was to watch WCW in my house.
Bro, tell me about it.
It's literally the funniest and most New York thing I've ever heard.
What New Yorkers have you been hanging out with that's the most New York thing you ever heard? That's my concern.
No, the like having the sneak WCW thing because it's a WWF house. Yeah, that's hilarious.
I feel like East Coast was either WWF or ECW. I feel like that was I feel like WCW was more a West Coast thing, so you are right on that.
Yeah, that's
but
just
growing up, my
not
brother
the Cinemax part, but the sneaking the WCW is just hilarious.
Oh, I can relate to the Cinemax part, man. I don't know how many fucking times I saw Manuel in space.
Not even Cinemax, Jared. Do you remember the Spice Channel?
Chrissy, come on. Look who you're talking to.
We can talk after the pod. We can talk after the pod.
I watched scrambled porn all day, every day when I was like fucking 13, bro.
Come on.
What's happening right now?
These kids nowadays, they don't know how fucking good they have it.
Pat, what is happening right now? Is this the group chat?
How the fuck did we go from Ultimo Dragon to scrambled porn? I don't know, but God, I love it.
This is supposed to be a wrestling show. This is supposed to be a wrestling show.
It's like Ultimo Dragon and Scrambled Porn are not two words I thought would be in the same
also now
sentence.
the name of mine and Pat's punk bands.
Ultimo Dragon and Scramble Board. All right, great.
Absolutely.
Pat,
Like,
is
growing
this
up,
what
my
happens in
brother
the
loved
La
Ultimate
Familia
Dragon
group
because
chat?
my brother was also a huge Gaijin fan, huge Godzilla fan, huge Ultraman fan. So the aesthetic of Ultimo Dragon with his gear and the almost overplayed weebness of it all, he loved that aspect to Ultimo Dragon. And my brother was a big boy wrestling fan. He loved the Hulk Hogan's, he loved the Razor Ramones, the Kevin Nash's, or Scott Hall's when he was in WCW. And it took for my brother to get into Ultimo Dragon for him to be able to respect and like the rest of the cruiserweights. And it's funny that a lot of people nowadays appreciate the fact that the characters aren't super funny, like a Kevin Owens, like a Sami Zayn. They're more based in reality. When Ultimate Dragon was almost Saturday morning cartoon superhero level of wrestler, and that's what pulled back then. Like, you could afford to be almost over the top with your aesthetic and still be taken seriously. It's a lot more difficult nowadays to look the way that Ultimo did and still be taken as seriously as he did as a competitor. But that's what happens when you perform all over the world and not just in the US. But if it wasn't, like you guys said, if it wasn't for people like Ultimo Dragon with their well-rounded sense of themselves and their career, we wouldn't have any more access to styles from outside of the US, and we wouldn't have the cruiserweight divisions that we have now if it wasn't for the interactions with the wrestlers like Ultimo Dragon.
Yeah. Mike, I feel like you were a huge Ultimo Dragon fan, right?
Yes.
I mean, how could you not, right? What are some of your fondest memories of Ultimo Dragon? I know we talked about the Super J Crown.
His matches with like Ray and Dean Malenko and like Billy Kidman. He had some phenomenal matches with Billy Kidman in the like 97, 96. I think also like there was a function, like a group of Japanese pro wrestlers, and a guy who doesn't get enough credit, his manager, Sonny Ono.
Ah, yeah.
I did love Sunny. I did.
Like being able to speak for Ultimo Dragon because he didn't know English well, and being that mic piece for Sonny or for Ultimo. He had great matches like Juventud and Psychosis, who I know we're going to talk about later. But those matches, like not even on Nitro, but like on Thunder, that like these throwaway matches that are just honestly phenomenal.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like there wasn't. That's another guy. I can't think of a bad match Ultimo Dragon had in WCW. Like even stuff like working Alex Wright stuff. I mean, he had a great matches with him. Yeah. Pat, what about you, buddy? What are some of your thoughts on the greatness that is the Ultimo Dragon?
I totally agree to MJ's sentiment of that picture of Ultimo Dragon being one of the most badass wrestling photos to ever exist. It's
the original belt collector.
Yeah, the original
has nothing on this man.
Yeah. For me, looking at Ultimo when I would see him, it was, of course, you had, Ray and everybody like that, but it was the shoulder pads with the mask, more shoulder pads than a 1970s Kentucky Derby. Like it looked so different, and so I wasn't hugely familiar with Ultimo, and then he got to WCW, and originally I was a fan of appreciative of the work, but I wasn't a huge Sonny Ono fan. He reminded me a lot of Ken Jeong from The Hangover. He was just so over the top all of the time. Like he was just go.
Yeah.
Funny.
And so it used to just like, I was like, oh man, like Sonny. But then the match would start and Ultimo Dragon was just capable of so many incredible things. And I feel like he doesn't get a lot of the appreciation that he deserves because kind of after the WCW run, he went back to Japan and from a Western audience's eyes, you don't get to see him as much. But Ultimo Dragon is great, man. Like it's a sentiment what Jeremy said. Like I can't remember a bad match. Like maybe a short match, sure. There was a lot of that going around in the cruiserweight division at the time, but a bad match from Ultimo Dragon is just not something you see. Like he was that good at what he did. How he didn't get his own manga or anime blows my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real, dude. I can say this. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so after he left the WWE, he did like 2 matches back in Japan, but he had a strong run in Italy.
Yeah, that's true. Like he worked everywhere.
There was a New Wrestling Europe that had like Rikishi and like Sean O'Hare and like the fired members of like the FBI and a bunch of like M-Dog 20 wrestled for this Italian company.
This sounds like a weird Spider-Verse spinoff. This sounds like a weird timeline to exist.
They wrestled in like Italy and Milan. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Man, Sean O'Hare, that's a name I haven't thought of in a very long time.
Right?
Underrated talent.
Oh, absolutely. Sean O'Hare was great.
I can say this. I was fortunate enough earlier this year. I actually got to see Ultimo Dragon perform in person.
Forgot that happened.
He wrestled at he was at our Squared Circle Expo in Indianapolis, and he actually wrestled Nick Nemeth. It was a fucking awesome match. It was so fun.
Oh my god!
One of the wrestlers, Chris, he's about to have another heart attack.
That sounds like a fever dream. That sounds like I fell asleep like on acid, and I was like, oh, that's what happened. Okay, like that doesn't sound like it's in this plane of existence, but like that's what's wonderful about wrestling. Like if they're able to work, they'll work anywhere, and you get matches like that.
Yeah,
it sounds like something booked on World Championship Wreckage.
There you go. There you go. Cheap plug.
Thing.
And speaking of which, speaking of that matchup, you can see it here on Cole TV too. Another cheap plug. Oh yeah. God, we love plugs. I want to talk about next. I want to talk about a guy who there's so many of these great cruiserweights we talked about. This guy gets lost in the shuffle a lot, which is a shame. I want to talk about Psychosis. I think Psychosis was one of the best workers. Like if you wanted if somebody was like, you're bringing him in, you want to have him a good match, like put them against Psychosis. That man bumped like no other. Like Psychosis, the stuff he was doing. Like I can remember when he like jumped through the ropes and almost do kind of like the Mike, you'll know, like the Chris Hamrick spots at times and stuff, where he just do crazy shit like that. Just crazy. Man, I mean, they don't call the man Psychosis for
racist.
Mike, what's some of your thoughts on Psychosis, man?
A Lucha Libre legend. I think because Eddie and Ray get that high praise, guys like Psychosis and Juventud, like they don't get talked about much, but goddamn, do they have as much talent as those two, and phenomenal matches all throughout 2099. And sadly, especially in like 98, 99, they were part of a cruiserweight division that was put on some horrible storylines because of one Vince Russo. Like they were given shit.
Pinata on a pole.
Yeah.
That's a shame. Like Psychosis is such a great wrestler, and the shit that man had to endure and put up with, not only in WCW, like I hate to even mention this, but fucking WWE. Ugh.
Yeah.
The fucking I don't even want to say their fucking
let's
name.
not say that name.
Jesus. Fuck you, Vince McMahon.
I'll do it because I'm petty. You talk about the Mexicals?
Yes.
He said it. Yeah.
That honestly, at this point in the game, that word that Pat just said sounds like a racial slur to me. Honestly, I can't.
We're gonna get flagged. You're a beautiful man, Pat, but we're still gonna get flagged.
Oh no, we're super gonna get flagged because they had the.
You talk about Pillman's got a gun, but I can't say Mexico. What the hell?
How dare you? How dare you?
We can talk about scramble porn, but Mexico is what draws the line. What are we doing?
That's where we draw the line on Cole TV, sir. There is a line. It's very thin.
It's not porn, Patrick.
Yeah.
It's bad Mexican representation.
It was.
I actually, right after WCW folded, when I was living in El Paso, there was a nightclub there that was called Far West Rodeo, and they had like a small Mexican like indie promotion, whatever, like take place inside this nightclub one day. First of all, it was hosted by very early on Gabriel Iglesias hosted the event, so that was a thing.
Everything
And the
about
main
this sounds horrible. Or not
it,
horrible.
it really was, yeah. And it was the main event was Psychosis versus, I want to say, like the third version of Octagon, because I know there's been like four
Yeah.
octagons and like five pentagons,
Yeah.
but and again, it's a small little inside this little thing, so you're 3 feet from the ring, and I think I was like 10 or 11 at the time, and that he had the mask back on, which was strange to me. But I mean, what I liked him. The horns and everything was great. Like I love to watch Psychosis work, but I don't know if it was just because he was like, I'm not under a contract anymore. I don't have to worry. But those two just threw everything at the wall. Like whatever you think of any kind of lucha libre spot, and they did it in spades. They went on what felt like forever, and it was a great match. And I very vividly remember that match, like again from being 10 or 11 years old. And yeah, man, Psychosis, like again, as MJ said, like of course Eddie and Ray are that we give them the upper echelon, but we wouldn't have Eddie and Ray, we wouldn't have that revere for them without Psychosis, without Hoovy, without Laparco, without those guys, because they had great matches with those people.
Yeah.
And
He's
so
a dance partner.
exactly, it takes two to tango, and Psychosis was one of the best to do it, and he was one of those guys that like he was slimmer in stature when it came to the luchadors. Like he was scrawny. I don't mean that as in he was thin, but he had a thinner build.
Yeah.
So when he would do things, especially the way he would bump, it just everything looked like it hurt. Like every bump that man took, like
he
you
was
just
gonna
thought,
break.
yeah. Like he would take. I remember he took he was going to do a Frankensteiner, and somebody dropped out and power bombed him. And I remember like vividly, the first thought in my head was the Jerry the King Lawler soundbite from Hell in a Cell. It's like, that's it, he's dead. Like that's immediately what came to mind, because he took that bump so hard, but he was great at it. And I love a good seller. That's why I love Nick, Dolph, whatever you want to call him. But you can sell your ass off for me. I love that. I love to watch a guy, bounce around like he's being manhandled, and Psychosis was great at that. And that's one of the big things that I remember fondly and that I take away from watching Psychosis. Like that man could bump like no one else, and he was great at it.
Yeah. You
know what
mentioned a
took
name
him
though.
5
go ahead.
years to actually win the WCW Cruiserweight title?
Yeah, it's crazy to think like he didn't really have like what, one or two runs maybe with the
Yeah,
Cruiserweight
and
title?
both in '99.
How crazy is that? Like you would have thought he had more than that, but no. There's a name you mentioned there.
Other wrestlers like Roddy Piper never held the world championship, but he's still regarded as one of the best.
Yeah.
Sometimes certain gold, like gold rings may not be obtainable, but that doesn't mean that you still don't have a legend status behind you. It's just that your career was omitted from that one particular thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no matter how far forward WCW was, they were still kind of trapped into that land of the giants mindset. So you could be great as a cruiserweight, but there's still a glass ceiling on the division, and a lot of them were kind of subjected to that, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. But no, there's a name you mentioned there, Pat. We got to talk about this gentleman. We got to let the juice loose. Let's talk about one, Juventud Guerrera. And I will say this with Hoovy. This is what impressed me the most about Hoovy, because typically when a wrestler lost their mask, that was like a death sentence in the world of lucha libre, right? But Juventud Guerrero is one of the guys I remember, like when he lost the mask, somehow like he got better somehow. Like I feel like
because he got more marketable. They're like, wait, the babes like him? Cool, great. Keep him without the mask. Keep him in the front. Like, keep him in the camera. like especially during that era, late 90s, early 2000s, that was the aesthetic, that was the gimmick. Him, Billy Kidman, like all these other, like young Ray without the mask, like the younger aesthetic of a wrestler was something that they were really trying to push, because we were used to like Terry Bollea, Ultimate Warriors, Andre the Giants, like men in their like
60s.
like late 40s, early 50s. At least they looked like they were that. So now in this young MTV generation era, you want to try and push the people that look like the people that you want to watch, which is what, like the 18 to 35 demographic.
Yeah.
So when you have that almost rock star aesthetic, like a Juventud or like a Billy, and you can move the way that Juventud does, you push him to the moon. I'm honestly surprised he didn't get more popular.
Yeah.
But wasn't Juventud another one of the freaking Mexicools?
It was. It was Hoovy.
How?
Psychosis. Super crazy.
Hell, you
super
could
crazy.
technically say Hoovy was kind of the mouthpiece of that group, really.
He was. He was the mic.
He was the mic, and the thing with Hoovy, like as Chrissy said, like the whole the marketability and the generation that it was, like when you look at Hoovy, especially during that era, and maybe this is just me thing, and again, just the way my brain works, but it looks like, the baby filter they have on like Snapchat and stuff like that. It looks like they put that on Slash. Like that's who he looks like. He looks like a smaller version of Slash, and so
that is something I didn't need to realize.
I didn't even say that. Until you said
that's not a diss to Slash or Hoovy. They're both great. Like I love Hoovy. I heard he's kind of
Slash and Juventud both win. I feel like
like they're great. They're fun. I hear he's kind of hard to deal with in the locker room. That's what not here nor there.
In the locker room. I have talked to a few independent guys, and that guy is a jackass. I hear.
But
really?
Yeah, man, like I've heard that he's very very full of himself.
Well, this is funny because I actually have a Hoovy story. Like we had the distinct privilege at Squared Circle Expo this year. Hoovy was placed right next to our table. And like I can tell you, like we had several interactions with him throughout the week or throughout the on Friday that we did it. But super nice guy. He was nice to us, very polite, asking us what our channel and stuff, Even Jay got a picture with him and stuff. Like Juventud was I think I think in the Twilight
you asked
probably.
Yeah, because if you ask a young Jack Evans and Teddy Hart, that dude, and Conan, he was a jack.
Well, I'll say this: I don't put any stock in anything Teddy Hart has to say.
Yeah, that's
Jack
Evans,
not the best
person to pull.
I guess the story goes in AAA, Hoovy put shit in Jack Evans's bags, like human feces.
Is that a normal rib thing to do in locker rooms?
I don't.
And so wait a minute.
There's no reason that anybody on the planet needs to go full Amber Heard in someone's bag. Like, it's okay. Like, let's not do that. Can we knock that off?
So what you're telling me here, Mike, is he literally let the juice loose in this bag?
And we're out of time. Oh man! But circling back again, we'll try and keep this somewhat wrestling based.
Yeah.
But Hoovy was great, man. Like when he lost the mask to Jericho, I love the I think it was the match that he lost it, or maybe it was the one prior that Jericho pulls off the mask and Hoovy has another one underneath it. Like he doubled up on it. Like that was a great spot. Like he was so good. He kind of took the X Factor or whatever you want to call it move, the face buster move, and he was great at it. Again, the wild hair and everything like that. Like Hoovy was good, man. Like I'm not taking anything away from Hoovy. Again, despite what I mentioned earlier, you're still great, Hoovy. We love you. Come on the show. It'll be great. We'll have a good time. But
remember me.
Yeah, you remember him. Wait.
Yeah. We had a conversation with like Allie and Effie. It was a good time, Hoovy. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, he had a brief return in AEW against Jericho for a minute. Like he had a match, which I didn't expect at all. when they were doing that, like I was like, Hoovy? Really? And he showed up and was like, oh shit.
He's
Hoovy
also
Guerrero's
worked.
still doing it.
He also worked a little bit in GCW too.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
the Hatsune Miku, like, what are you doing here meme, where it's like, hello? Like, is it you? Oh, it is. Oh, weird. Super weird. But that happens a lot in the world of wrestling.
Well, we've talked about a lot of greats, but I think it's that time where we need to talk about this man who we've mentioned. But Pat, I got to give you the lead on this one. We got to talk Eddie Guerrero. I mean, fuck.
The legend that is Eduardo Guerrero. That man has emboldened me as a person, not just as a wrestling fan, just as a person. From the time that I first witnessed him in wrestling, even now, years on from his passing, Eddie Guerrero was so great to professional wrestling, from in the ring to talking on the mic to just everything that Eddie was, everything that he did. For me, again, as a young Mexican American growing up in El Paso, having, because you go to El Paso and you mention the name Eddie Guerrero in passing, you mentioned Latino Heat, you mentioned anything about Eddie, and you see the change in people's face. He was such a staple of that city, and growing up watching him in WCW, especially when he did the thinned out mullet and he was in the black trunks, around the heel turn era with his match against Ray, which we're going to talk about here soon. Like that Eddie Guerrero, all the way moving forward to everything that he accomplished in WCW and WWE. It's so personal to me because Eddie was the Mexican Superman. Like, you can say what you want about El Santo and everything else like that, but just seeing Eddie every week and seeing him do the things that he could do. And he wasn't extremely flashy. Could he be? Absolutely. But the mat tech work, the submissions, the whole reason I know the move, the lasso from El Paso, is because of Eddie. I don't care what you say about Montez, KO, Logan, anybody like that. The absolute greatest frog splash. And yes, sorry, RVD, the absolute greatest, purest frog splash in the history of professional wrestling is Eddie Guerrero. And you look at the influence he's had on not only Lucha Libre wrestlers and Cruiserweight wrestlers, but you look at people like Sasha or Mercedes, whatever you want to call her, like his influence on her and everything like that. The fact that he was able to take something like literally being a criminal, I lie, I cheat, and I steal from everybody, and becoming a beloved character, just goes to show how good Eddie was. And when Eddie passed in 05, and again in 05 I was 14. I was 14 when Eddie passed. And I remember being physically ill. Like, it hurt my soul, and it hurt so much, and a part of me. And still to this day, on October 9th, which was Eddie's birthday, like I still go back and I watch old Eddie matches and just get that nostalgia boost, that serotonin boost of just enjoying Eddie, because again, being just the culture that I come from, the wrestling fan that I am, being where I'm from, I'm trying very hard not to get emotional. Eddie was so much more than a wrestler to me. Eddie was a hero to me. And when I lost one of my heroes, I was never the same, and I'm still not the same when I think about everything that he did. And I will forever make the claim and stake in the argument that when you encompass everything as far as being a professional wrestler, in-ring ability, mic work, promo work, storylines, things like that. If I will always make the conversation that Eddie should be in at least your top 5. Eddie is my number 2. The only person that takes precedent over Eddie is Shawn. But I also mostly grew up in a WWF household, so I saw a lot more of Shawn. But Eddie he was so special. And I could sit here and try and come up with a million other words to describe him, but that's just the best thing that I can come up with. And again, talking about it makes me emotional. It gives me that somber feeling. But I choose not to mourn his death. I choose to celebrate his life. And the life of Eddie Guerrero and the history and the professional wrestling career of Eddie is so important to Patrick, to Pat the Wise Man, that had it not been for Eddie Guerrero and everything that he has ever done or everything he ever did, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of y'all, because he kept me a fan of professional wrestling for so long.
Yeah, that was beautiful, man. Like, I mean, I think all of us are tearing up just thinking about Eddie Guerrero and how we've all been emotionally touched. Mike, I know I seen you went to your closet there, buddy. I know I should probably give you a moment there to recover, but I seen you got a little something.
So my friend just bought this for me. I wanted to show Pat.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
That's dope.
That is incredible. Real quick, Jay or MJ, hold that up. Keep it here. Come here. My son's here in the room with us. Check out this Eddie shirt.
That's sick.
Hi, Jay.
That's
cool.
Everybody, that's one of the wise children. That's Jace. Everybody say hello.
Hi, Jace.
Hey, Jace.
They all say hello. But yeah, that shirt's awesome. I need to get more Eddie stuff. I only have an LWO shirt currently.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I have the shorts. Yeah.
I have
the Latino Heat shorts.
There's this picture above my bathroom door. This little chin thing you guys see, that is Eddie.
Awesome.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Eddie was the reason I started actually really paying attention to professional wrestling. It was always on, like at my grandparents' house. My uncles watched it, but there was a specific match, and it was in a June episode of. I remember it specifically. It was a June episode of Monday Night Nitro. It was 1997, and it was Eddie versus his brother, actually, Hector.
Oh.
And I remember, like,
the gobbledygooker.
What?
The gobbledygooker.
Hector, the gobbledygooker.
Yeah. This is at the end of Hector's career. He had that short stint in 96, 97 in WCW. I think all the Guerreros were working for WCW at that point, because I think Dory and Mondo also were there.
They were.
Yeah. And I remember just stopping what I was doing and sat down. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. And I paid attention anytime Eddie Guerrero was on the TV at that point. I didn't give a crap for the longest time about anything else that happened on WCW, but I saw Eddie with that white jacket with the wedge shoulders pop on the screen. I was like, okay, it's game time.
Yeah,
So I do the same thing on Eddie's birthday and on the day he died. I will sit and I watch WCW Eddie Guerrero matches all day. Like, don't bother me, don't text me. I'm watching Eddie.
Yeah, just so again, for anybody watching and anybody,
this is actually how me and Pat became friends.
We bonded over Eddie. It was because it was during right after Dom's heel turn.
Yeah.
He came out and cut the promo that he said, "I'm this generation's Eddie Guerrero," and I made a video. It's like, no, the fuck you're not even close. And that's how me and MJ became friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just so anybody's aware, if you text me or message me or anything on October 9th and ask, what are you doing? You already know the answer. I'm watching Eddie Guerrero matches.
Yeah.
I can say this, like, I've talked about this before. Some of you may know this, some of you may not. But I actually was privileged enough I got to see Eddie's last match he ever wrestled. Like, I was there in Indianapolis on that SmackDown where he wrestled Mr. Kennedy. And it's crazy because like we didn't obviously you don't know. That's just one of those things, folks. Life's too short. You just never know what's gonna happen. So just you know, call somebody like, you know, your loved ones, acknowledge them, you know, hold them tight because you just never know. But man, I still have like the program and I still have my placard of like where I parked, even though it had nothing to do really with anything. But I just that is still like an emotional wrestling moment for me to say like I got to actually be fortunate enough to see his last matchup. Like Chrissy, I know you're tearing up too. Tell us some of your thoughts on Latino Heat.
It's a lot more detailed than I would like to admit. Speaking XLJ just said call the people who you care about because you never know when it's gonna be the last time. Recently I just lost my uncle. And I got into wrestling because of my uncle.
Oh, wow.
My uncle was the one that bought the pay-per-views. He always had the kids over at the house. And once again, we weren't really able to watch WCW as a WWF family, but my introduction to Eddie, from what I really remember, was actually through the storyline with Chyna. Because I was a huge Chyna girl growing up. She was the one that didn't look like the rest. And I was the black sheep out of my family when it came to the girls. And my father used to say really mean-spirited things. Well, like, oh, well, you know, like the day that Chyna gets a boyfriend, I'm sure you will too. This is before she had like the cosmetic changes. But when Chyna got more popular, she got teamed with Eddie. And Eddie was Eddie. Eddie's smooth. It's very similar to what Pat said earlier. There's a difference between being cool and being a badass and being smooth. Eddie was smooth. Eddie was good. Eddie could talk. Eddie was Eddie. Eddie was special. We've said these things about these characters beforehand, but I don't feel like it rings more true than for Eddie Guerrero. Eddie was special. So when he started teaming up with Chyna, and I saw myself in these people as the unconventional woman, as the Latin character, like I'm seeing these characters represent bits and pieces of myself when that really hasn't happened before. So Eddie means the world to me because Eddie's like what Pat said, Eddie's the reason why I'm here. Some of the best friends I've ever had in the world are from wrestling, and it's from the connections of growing up in the trenches. But you have those small escapes when the world isn't super kind to you. You have those little moments of levity and light. And us watching Eddie Guerrero on UPN SmackDown was something that allowed us to leave our dim existences for 2 hours every Thursday night. And Eddie was a huge, huge part of that for me. Eddie, like what Pat said, like these people, these are people that are ingrained in culture, that are ingrained in lore. I could pull up an image of the gear from Halloween Havoc, and everyone automatically knows what I'm talking about. There's been Chanel streetwear jackets that have had the image of Eddie and Ray spray painted on the back. High fashion brands that understand the importance of these two gentlemen and what they did that night. People who would probably never in a million years think to look at wrestling, but they at least know that image. They at least know what they look like. And that's the important thing, is that representation is so important for the kids out there that are different, for the kids out there that don't feel like they're seen. Those 15 minutes on television of someone that looks like you, that sounds like you, that can relate to where you're from could mean the world to you, can mean just that much of a difference, can keep you on the straight and narrow as opposed to going down a wrong path. And Eddie was one of those major people for me, so much so to the point where everyone's mentioned October 9th. And my grandmother and my uncle were huge wrestling fans, so much so to the point where I'm not sure if Pat's family does it. I know in Mexican culture it's called an ofrenda. My family just called it an altar. And it's a very Catholic style religious thing. It's a statue of Mary, usually offerings to the spirits, water, fruit. It's a sign that you still respect the people that have passed on. And my grandmother had one of my old Eddie Guerrero Topps cards in the in the altar, and that did not leave that altar until my grandparents passed away.
Wow.
And every October 9th, they would pour a shot of mezcal, and they would leave it. For those who don't know, mezcal is tequila. They would pour a shot, and they would leave it in the altar, and they would leave it there for October 9th to November 9th for Eddie's birth month. And every year since he's passed, that was always a necessity. Always a necessity. When something impedes your life so much to the point where it almost becomes family, that's how you know it's special. When I say we lost Eddie, I'm not saying like as a, you know, like a universal collective, like, oh, like Eddie passed on. When I say we lost Eddie, we lost Eddie. We all lost Eddie. We all felt that. When Vicky Guerrero stepped up and gave his commemorance speech at the Hall of Fame the year that he was inducted, we all felt that. We all felt those highs. We all felt those lows. And it goes to show that no matter what your creed, color, race, gender, there are a lot of human factors that can tie us together, and mourning the loss of a loved one is definitely one of those. And when I say I've never felt more community in the IWC or just in the wrestling community, because when Eddie passed, I don't think the IWC was really a thing yet, but I've never seen so much camaraderie amongst wrestling fans as to when Eddie Guerrero passed. Because it was like we lost a brother, an uncle, a father, a friend. It felt like we lost all of that at once. And to this day, we are people in our adult ages in different locations in the US tearing up about someone who we've never met, but it feels like we met them anyway because we were able to find each other through this chaos. It's because of the wrestlers like Eddie that I have you guys. And I'm always really, really grateful. We're just going to ignore this. We're just going to cut this out.
Fine. You're fine, Bess. You're good.
No, you're absolutely fine.
Take a
It's
breath.
Eddie.
People are watching live, XL. Okay, we have to be professional.
It's okay. I think we lost a
Professional
couple
at
after
this
scrambled
show?
porn. So no.
We lost the porn.
No, no, seriously,
Did
like,
you
with
just say
Eddie,
be professional on a Cole TV show? That's
the man's not wrong.
happening ever.
The man's not wrong. I'm just saying. But no, the thing, like we're all getting teared up just thinking about this man. Like his greatness, what he gave us on a weekly basis on television. We were just a small little part of his life. But the fact that we were all so attached to Eddie Guerrero, that's how good he was at coming across on your television screen as just somebody that you just loved and adored and idolized. And I mean, that to me sums up the greatness that was Eddie Guerrero. So, man, I feel like we need to do an Eddie Guerrero show after this one.
Absolutely.
Just straight up Eddie.
Yes.
I feel
I'll
like
be
we're
there.
also all trauma bonded.
Yeah.
15 minutes. I feel
we really have. But
As soon as the show is over, I'm calling my therapist.
yes, book it. These are all great cruiserweights, but I want to talk here briefly about some of the unsung heroes of the cruiserweight division. I think these are guys that just they were there, but not enough people really recognize or remember them. Recently we just lost one of the Fianos. Fiano 5 just passed away earlier this past week. But the Fianos was a huge part of that cruiserweight division. Silver King, El Dandy, Super Calo. Yeah. I tell you, one of my guys I loved, and he was only there for a brief time. Y'all remember Blitzkrieg?
Yes.
Yes.
I love.
Why do I remember that?
Well, the mask was
white
cool.
guy with a
I'll tell you,
weird
it was the
name.
mask.
Yeah, the mask is what was cool.
It was like a mix of Glacier and what was Canyon's mask gimmick?
Rat.
Oh, Mortis.
Mortis.
Yeah, it was like a blend of those two. It was very
Yeah.
Sub-Zero-esque, Mortal Kombat style, and yeah, like when you he again very much one of the unsung heroes. You don't remember too much about huge matches or anything he did, but I hear the name and I instantly can see that mask in my head.
Yeah. I think of a guy like a former cruiserweight champion here in Prince Iakea. later on becoming the artist.
It's
And
formerly known.
that gimmick as the artist formerly known as Prince
Taking a
IK.
shot at Prince in 1999 is a wild gimmick to do.
Bro,
Once
Prince
again,
is the
that
goat.
huge
Prince is the
spot,
goat.
What?
Wasn't Prince Iakea the first and one of the only cruiserweight tag champions, if I remember
He
correctly?
was the only WCW Cruiserweight
Yeah,
Tag Team Champion.
It was him and Elix, wasn't it?
Yes.
I want to say it was him and Elix Skipper.
It
Yeah,
was.
they
And yes, there
They
was a
won it on that
cruiserweight
last
tag
pay
division.
per view, and then the company folds.
Wah,
my
wah,
goodness.
wah. But yeah, there was even that's how great the cruiserweight division. There even was a tag team division, folks. But
I
that's really
honestly goddamn wish that that
oh, I know. If they'd
I
stayed
remember
in
s-
business, oh yeah.
Yeah, I've seen the defunct design of the belt of the tag team belt, and it's very interesting. The center plate is an eagle's head, and then the side plates are the wings, and
Yeah.
it was very cool looking design. But I very specifically remember that Prince Iakea and Elix Skipper were the one and only WCW Cruiserweight Tag Champions. Yeah, I
There we
also
go.
remember the weird hat he would wear. I don't know why.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember weird parts
Well,
of
also,
gear when it comes to
Thinking of
wrestlers.
Iakea too.
this
Outside
is
of the Nitro
only picture
Girls.
out of these two, right after the pay per view.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. But
And
no,
it's-
outside of the, I was gonna say with Iakea, it also introduced for the first time, really outside the Nitro Girls, the Queen
And it
Charmel,
wasn't Prince.
Paisley.
So
Like
it
that-
wasn't
God.
Prince.
It wasn't?
No, it was Kid Romeo.
That's who it was.
Oh, Kid
Also another
Romeo.
unsung hero.
Yeah.
There you
Kid
go.
Romeo.
He's
That's
Kid
who it
Romeo.
was.
So I'm Facebook friends with him. He's
Oh.
like, yeah. So he lives down in Florida and owns a bunch of smoothie shops down in Florida.
Delicious. I love
Okay.
smoothies.
Yeah. He's like a health nut.
All right. Well,
Nice.
shout out to
Well,
Kid Romeo. I apologize for mistaking you
I
with
still
Prince
remember
Iakea.
the dance to this day. So
Oh, dear
Um,
Lord. Okay,
speaking
hold
of
on.
dancing-
I was going to say, if we're going to talk about dances, we need to get into the 1, 2, 3 count.
oh, you're reading my mind, brother. The 3 count, yes. Evan Courageous, Shannon Moore, and
And
Shane Helms.
Shane Helms.
Uh,
The thing I remember so specifically, first of all, we can talk about it after I'm done, but just the first 2 things I think of when I think of 3 counts. First one is Tank Abbott.
Mhm.
I was gonna say, if we don't
Yeah.
talk about UFC Hall of Famer Tank Abbott, for some reason,
Biggest super fan.
man is a crazy
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. The second thing I remember is in their song. I remember there's a line in their song that says, "We're like the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC 2.
Too.
Britney Spears is kind of
Kinda
cute." Like, what a random ass
Hank
line.
Abbott just dancing and so happy,
Yeah.
like
God,
get up
oh my
on your
God.
feet.
This guy went from beating up Ken Shamrock on a regular basis to dancing with Shannon Moore and Gregory Holmes.
It was the greatest
I mean,
thing ever.
But what's better, Shannon Moore in 3 count or when he had the weird mohawk gimmick?
I loved emo Shannon Moore.
I was not a fan. I remember when he was in WWE CW and he was like, there's a promo or it was supposed to be a promo segment where he's like facing a wall and he turns around to talk and CM Punk walks in frame. He looks at him and goes, "Poser," and walks off screen. I was like,
Oh, he
nice.
smacks him in the face too. Yeah, I love
Oh
that.
yeah, dude, he
promo
slaps
just for
it.
that.
Yes, he
And
does.
he's like, looks like he's gonna start crying like a little bitch.
It
But
was
hey,
him.
hey, Shannon Moore was a great wrestler though.
He was.
Yes.
Like,
The pride of
He
that-
was. I remember in TNA he had the Book of Dilligath, which, if for all the uninformed, the Book of Dilligath stands for "Do I Look Like I Give a Fuck," which was great.
but
But yeah, 3 count.
And
And
they
I
had
mean-
a great rivalry with the Young Dragons too, and that introduced the world to like a young guy like Jamie Noble was in that group.
And also Jimmy Wayne Yang.
Jimmy
yeah,
Wayne Yang was in that group as well. Yeah.
The early 2000s was a time.
yeah.
Yes, it was.
Hey, we talk about Jimmy Wayne
Was
Yang
time.
going from Young Dragons to TNA and becoming a flying Elvis.
Oh yes.
and the becoming the redneck cowboy too. So very talented.
And
young
now, well, I don't know if he still does, but I remember
Does
they
the
did like a WWE thing that he owns this party buses.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
he owns
in
a
his
party
house.
bus still.
Oh,
Yeah, that's great. Shout out to Jimmy Wang Yang.
His son
But
wrestles.
absolutely. And
yeah,
his daughter's wrestling now too, and she's killing it.
Yeah.
So
His
Yeah, I've
daughter,
seen that
yes,
shit.
his daughter wrestles, and whose son is that? I think it's Funaki's son.
Oh
Mhm.
wow.
I
Yeah,
believe it is too.
because
I'll
I
be
think
damned.
Funaki's the one that trains them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
But when I think of 3 count, like of course, and I'm sure
Mhm.
we'll get to the topic of Shane Helms, like Shane Helms is great, but Evan Courageous was really good. And I feel like because of how good Shane Helms was and is, like he was the standout, but Evan Courageous was really, really good.
first
He
one
could
out of the
move.
group to win the cruiserweight title. I think the
he
problem
was.
is, Pat, he got put in the most god awful cruiserweight storyline in the stuff with Medusa and Oklahoma. Ugh,
Oh
unbelievable.
my
you know what
God.
makes the Evan
was
Courageous
a
thing
nightmare.
even better? That dude was an actor. He did soap
Really?
I
opera.
didn't know that. Really?
He
Wow.
was
Unbeknownst to
married with,
me.
not married with children, but yeah, he was on like some
Like
daytime
General
soap opera.
Hospital, All Life to Live.
Yeah, he was on one of those.
I'll be damned. That's crazy. I did not know that. Hey, one last one I want to mention as far as unsung heroes, and this guy, I love him to pieces. I got the privilege of seeing his comeback match in Chicago about a year ago. I want to talk about the Raging Cajun, one Lash LaRue. I loved me some Lash LaRue, man. Like Lash LaRue was probably like my
Pride
last
of New
favorite.
Orleans, and part of one
Yeah.
of the greatest factions ever.
The Misfits in action. Are you going there?
I love
Oh,
this
man.
faction.
You're
God.
talking about
G.I.
General Erection?
Yeah,
Oh, God.
GI Bro.
I don't even
Corporal
want to.
Cajun.
No. You can't even look up General Erection on like the Peacock app. Like, no, they
But yeah.
also can't forget him.
So, Evan
No, it
Courageous.
wasn't. It was General Hugh G. Rection.
Yeah.
That was his name. That's
We
what it
had
was.
Chavo Guerrero, which another person we didn't mention. Chavo
Yeah.
Guerrero, his greatness.
Lieutenant
Lieutenant
Loco
Loco.
Lieutenant Loco, AWOL,
and Major Guns.
Yikes!
Hey.
Yeah, I gotta admit, teenage Jeremy did like Major Guns. I mean, come on. I ain't gonna lie. They put her in Team Canada. She had those maple leaves.
But
anyways,
yeah, he came from Evan Courageous, All My Children.
Oh my
Ah.
God.
he was on All My Children. Okay, I'll be damned.
Speaking
I
of Team
didn't know.
Canada, Lance
Yeah.
Storm.
Lance Storm was a
So I was
cruiserweight
gonna ask that. Was Lance Storm considered a cruiserweight in WCW?
He had that cruiserweight belt. He gave it the end.
Oh,
of
that's
the,
right. I remember he
Because he had all
started-
made everything. He made everything Canadian. I remember that.
It was 150 kilograms or under belt.
Yeah.
and he started.
Second best
he won
super kick in the
that,
game.
won the hell yeah, brother, the hardcore title, and then he won the U.S. title, and like
Yeah,
you
he renamed it the
give
Canadian
English
title.
skipper. Yeah.
So
Team
basically, now that I'm thinking about it, so what I'm taking away from that is Lance Storm walked so MJF could run because he changed the United States title to the Canadian title, and just recently MJF changed the international title to the United States title or the U.S. title, whatever he called it, the American title.
Checks out.
Yeah, no,
Lance
that
was
checks out.
great, man. I there was the whole "Can I be serious for a minute" thing in WWE and the weird dance thing for what, but like Lance Storm was just, he was all business. And even back in ECW with Just Incredible when they were the
Americans? Oh no, Time Players.
no Primetime Players is
No, not Primetime. What were they calling ECW? Impact
it was
Players.
them. Impact Players, yes.
Yeah.
They were great. They had the brief reunion in during One Night Stand 2005, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
The first
yeah.
One Night Stand. Because Dawn
Yeah.
Marie came back.
Yes, and she was
Pregnant.
pregnant during that.
pregnant
Yes.
at the time. Yep, that's absolutely right.
Being
Yeah.
pregnant and having a cat fight with Buell McGillicuddy is actually wild.
Yeah,
Shout out to
it's-
Don Marie.
Yeah. Oh man, I love Dawn Marie, man. That's another one, Chrissy. You talk about confusing you during your youth. Oh God, Dawn. Anyways, I
That's
think it's a
episode-
perfect. Yeah. I think it's a perfect segue though, as we're talking into. Let's talk about the latter years of the cruiserweight division. So, you mentioned Lance Storm, Elix Skipper. We've mentioned 3 Count, Young Dragons, but
We have not mentioned the second best dancer in WCW in disco.
oh, this is true. We did because that's actually my segue into dancing. Was are you talking about the one Das Wonder Kid?
that too.
Das Wonder Kid, Alex Wright, man. Like Alex
Both of them.
Wright.
Oh, okay. We're talking about Alex Wright. Okay, I was like, I am not getting.
No, Mike, we're not. Are you going to talk about who I think you're going to say? Because we're not mentioning. Are you talking about Alex's tag partner? Because fuck. that.
Yeah.
Oh,
mean,
God.
No,
He's
fuck
a piece
Glenn
of
Gilbert.
shit.
Fuck.
But like,
I'm not even gonna call him by his wrestling name. Fuck
Yeah.
Glenn Gilberty. That dude's a piece of shit.
he
Can't
is a
stand
piece of
it.
shit.
You know what? If you're watching this, Glenn, fight me. I don't care. I can beat you up. I know I can. Bring it on.
I will be in Pat's corner. I will be there with the towel, wiping the little sweat off of his beautiful face. I'll be like, I got your back. You know,
No.
I got your back, bro.
I
This
mean,
is
he
I'm
is
a cruiserweight.
canonical thing in the
I'm a
MMA
cruiserweight.
industry is your love for Patrick.
he
Look
is
at
a,
the guy. I mean,
he is a
come on.
Why are you?
he's an ultimate piece of shit. But like, my
Glenn
I-
Gilberty, by the way. Patrick's
Glenn
a fucking
Gilberty.
angel.
We were still talking about Patrick, and he just didn't. He just
Patrick,
didn't comment.
Patrick is a fucking
Thanks,
angel.
guys.
Okay.
that's a person. No, Gwen Gobilty, Disco Inferno, horrible human being.
Absolutely.
But like, yeah, he had a weird stint where he was like a mainstay for cruiserweight division.
But
into,
didn't he
that was-
lose? Didn't he lose the cruiserweight title to like Jacqueline?
No, he lost that to Daphne.
Daphne,
Yeah.
that's who it was. I knew he lost. Well, he got power slammed by Jacqueline. I remember the match that he got power slammed by her. But
Yeah.
yeah, and then he had the weird, like he kind of was in the Filthy Animals for a little bit, and he would just like
That was
echo
him
everything
trying
that
to be
Conan
cool.
said.
Yeah, him trying to be cool with the Filthy Animals, and you wear the Kobe jersey.
I'm
Don't
still
ever disrespect
convinced
Kobe
he
Bryant like
has.
that.
He's got some shit on Conan because that's the only reason he's in the fucking podcast with him. I'm convinced
Yes.
that like, but fuck Glenn Gilberty. Fuck
Glenn
him. fuck
Gilberty
him,
is like
fuck
that.
him.
It's like the Negaverse version of like the one white kid that's adopted into like the group of like POC kids.
Yeah.
Like that's it's like the worst possible version that it could ever be, and that was that.
Oh Jesus Christ! Yeah, that's perfect, man.
It's that clip that's been going around of that little kid. He's like, "What's up?" and walk around in the suburbs. Hey Terry, what's going on? It's like this like super nice white guy's like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like that's Glenn Gilberty.
Yeah.
That's Richie Mars in our group chat.
Yo, why is Rich
Oh.
getting straight shot at him?
No, I love Richie.
no,
I'm just saying
Richie's
that
he's the very straight and narrow of our group.
Oh, I got
Richie's
you.
the best.
Oh,
I love
okay.
Richie. I
That's
love
hilarious.
Richie. And don't get me wrong, Mike. Listen, the clock is still ticking for you. We ain't forget about that. We gonna revisit that at the end of the Plugapalooza.
What?
I'm just saying. I know what happened. I saw the last episode. But very similar
Mike?
to how I only trust like 5 white men in my life. There's 2 of them on this screen. Disco Inferno is like the worst possible version of like the one white kid that got like the pass to say the N-word like once and he just never stops.
Yeah, that's that's a perfect way to sum up that piece of shit. But no, I want to talk about as we get talking about the end of the kind of like the era of the cruiserweights. I want to talk kind of like the beginning of that era and the end of that era, and arguably 2 of the greatest cruiserweights. And Chrissy, I might get you a little verklempt here, but we've talked about him briefly, but we got to talk about Billy Kidman. I mean, come on.
First of all, you had me cry on your podcast. I'm getting Billy first, okay? As like reparations.
Yes.
Absolutely not.
Please.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
First of all, Billy Kidman, the movie star himself, as his role in Ready to Rumble. First of all, highly
One of my
underrated
favorite
movie.
movies.
I love that fucking movie.
That's a little
I
bit of a
have-
stretch, but all right.
So, ironically, watched the DVD this morning.
Of course, because you have great taste, Mike. XL, if there's any way that we could do a Friday night movie night with Ready to Rumble, I don't care if you've done it before.
Funny, we did it before, but we'll do it again. We'll run her
Oh
back.
man,
Yeah.
I am so there.
We're doing it again, Pat. It's this same group and Bout Machine, and we're all out. And we're
Oh
all
shit!
there. That's what we're gonna do. But yeah, like Billy Kidman was once again, it's very for those in the group that do not know, being a woman in the wrestling space is very odd and weird and confusing because you want to like everything, but you're not allowed because you're a girl, especially like you're like late 90s, early 2000s situations. So you're trying to, like be one of the guys, and then it's like, oh, that one's attractive. I don't know what's happening. And that and Tori Wilson screwed me up for like a solid 2 years. The fact that they were dating did not make it better. That's probably why I ended in, like where I ended in my life now. But like Billy Kidman was this wild. He was almost slightly kind of a phenomenon for the cruiserweight division because he was everywhere. He was at the MTV like spring break like episodes with like the VJs. He would do like talk show spots, and it was because of his aesthetic. Billy Kidman wasn't super heavily featured on WCW. From what I can see, from what I watched back, he was popular, but he was nowhere near like an Eddie or like a Ray or like a Chris. Like he was good. He was mid-card good.
He had those moments. He had like the short moments with the flock where he was featured quite a bit. And then he had that weird
Didn't he wrestle Hogan?
Yeah.
He
had that weird
did have a feud, yeah.
The Hulk Hogan feud with the New Blood. That's a weird storyline. The New Blood Rising.
But that's what I mean. Like Billy was in this weird like purgatory of like really good moments, but not consistency. But then in terms of marketing, Billy was everywhere. Not everyone was using Ready to Rumble. Not everyone was using the promotionals for that. Not everyone was thrown into like random like music videos where they needed wrestlers for some reason. Billy was used a lot for that because they understood, once again, the time in which they were, the decade in which they were, the generation that they were dealing with. So they pushed a lot of the younger talent for the aesthetic of it all, and Billy really got to benefit from that. It's just unfortunate that it didn't translate over to his wrestling career as well. Not saying that he's incapable of being good. Like, he's great. I love Billy Kidman. I will always say on the highest mountain that he was highly underutilized. But he's just such a special case in my mind, because I specifically remember seeing Billy Kidman at the forefront all the time in terms of commercials, TV spots, vignettes in the back, like things that they would just do to market themselves out to like the civilian and crowds, people who weren't familiar with wrestling. But then when you turn in to watch, like, oh, like that's that white boy that I saw on MTV, I'm going to go see what he's doing, and he's not on the show.
Yeah.
Or if he is on the show, it's for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, I don't understand. I feel like if Billy Kidman was really given the push that he deserved, he would have been up there. He would have been maybe not like on Chris Jericho's level in terms of like longevity of his career, but in terms of how hot Chris was for like that short amount of time, I feel like Billy could have had that same heat if they would have given him some kind of production value where it mattered.
Yeah. And
yeah, no, I agree. I remember Kidman originally from the flock. I remember them sitting front row with him and Raven and everybody else, and he wrestled in the tattered black shorts and the white beater. I don't know if we can still say that. I don't know if that's PC anymore. But yeah,
you can say that, but you can't say Mexicools.
Right, Jesus.
yeah.
But I remember being such a fan of Billy because, to this day, the shooting star is one of my favorite moves. When anybody busts one out, I'm always a fan. So when I was always enamored with Billy just because of that. But I was so like invested in WCW Billy Kidman that when he went to WWE and he started wearing tights, I was like, that's not Billy Kidman. No, it's not. Yeah. Like, no. The clean cut and like that's not Billy. But yeah, I wasn't a fan, but yeah, man, like
he had a great theme song in WWE though.
He did.
Yeah,
DMX. Yeah. Which is also kind of strange. Like, yeah, let's take away the grunge look of Billy Kidman. Let's make him clean cut and give him nice bright colored tights. But let's give him a DMX rap theme song. Like, seems kind of counterproductive there. But digressing. But yeah, man, like I remember when he was in the flock, and even kind of after when he broke out, he was very soft spoken, and I don't know if that was just like a gimmick choice or something like that. But go ahead, MJ.
So the original Flock gimmick. Remember when he would sit in the crowd with Raven and he was Scratch?
Yes.
Heroin. He was supposed to be a former heroin addict.
The name of the Shooting Star Press was the 7-Year Itch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was
I
supposed to be
remember
a
that.
former heroin addicts, when they do so much, they lose their voice.
Ah, I was unaware of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Makes
But
me think of Tyrone from Chappelle's Show.
Yeah.
Oh,
So he was
oh,
supposed
baby.
to be a heroin addict that Raven took under his wing and saved.
The late 90s, early 2000s was a weird place.
Yeah.
It was a time.
But yes, that's why he had that voice and was that way.
Yeah, but it added so much to the aesthetic, at least in my opinion, because he was amazingly talented in the ring, and I remember, and this is in years passing. What is his name? He's a very popular wrestling YouTuber. Brian Zane, Wrestling with Regret. That anytime he covers a Billy Kidman match, that he has the joke that you don't try and, I think it's like you don't try and
do the power bomb.
Yeah, you don't try and power bomb Billy Kidman because he's gonna hit you with a face buster. And then like you go back and watch Billy Kidman stuff, you're like, oh shit, you really don't do that to Billy Kidman, huh? But I remember, I also like that, like again, due to the gimmick, the kind of grunge, unappealing look, that his shooting star wasn't pretty. It was kind of off to the side. It was like a side shot. And it just, everything. And again, I'm sure that wasn't by choice. I'm sure that's just how he was able to hit the move. But it was just kind of one of those things that you don't plan, but it adds to the character. It adds to the gimmick. He's this broken, unpretty character, but he's able to do so much. And so Kidman was, and again, I'm sure NJ, Mr. Encyclopedia, can give me the answer, but I remember a pay-per-view where like he wrestled the first like 3 matches like in a row. It was like a tournament style match, but like,
was that Starrcade 98 or was it the Sold Out? Because he did it twice, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that he wrestled like back to back to back, and he again like didn't miss a beat through, and it's 3 very different people he's wrestling, but he's still.
It's perfect because listen to this. Okay, that matchup was a 3-way. Rey Mysterio Jr. and Juventud Guerrero. He wins that after like a 30-minute war. Then he wrestles Eddie Guerrero. I mean, that showed you how damn good Billy Kidman was.
Yeah. I'm gonna go back and watch that after this. Now that I'm thinking about it, Starrcade 98, Chrissy. Just remember, write it down.
There you go.
And it's the opening contest again. As I was saying at the top of the show, like they put the cruiserweights on first because they knew it was going to draw attention. And when you have Juventud, Rey, and Kidman go for 30 minutes, and then immediately after you have Kidman and Eddie Guerrero, like, yeah, I'm sitting down and watching this. And then after that, whatever else happens, I don't care. But yeah.
Yeah. One last person I want to talk about, and I think this like kind of ties it up as far as like towards the later years of the Cruiserweight division. The last great Cruiserweight champion, we kind of mentioned him. We got to talk about Shane Helms. Because Shane Helms
to say above average Mike Sanders.
Oh, that's another. Well, yeah, he was.
I like the natural born thrillers.
Yeah. I think you.
I like the natural born thrillers.
I'm sorry,
but like,
there's the
natural born thrillers. After Juventud would wrestle, we would have our minds blown. But what is his
Our next Learning the Ropes, we're going to do the life and time of Van Hammer, and the episode is not going to be nearly as long as this.
Van Hammer's got an interesting career.
We'll be in and out in about 30 minutes now. I'm sorry, but no, like Sugar Shane Helms, though, man. Like he, because he got pigeonholed in there as like with the 3 count, with kind of like the boy band. I kind of look at it to a way that like look at what happened with Dolph, right? They brought him in as part of the Spirit Squad, the male cheerleaders, and look what he went on to do. And like Shane Helms like ascended. I mean, we all know him and love him as the Hurricane, but the stuff he was doing in WCW towards the end there, like he was putting on some great matches.
He had my all-time favorite finisher.
And that finisher, yeah, the
Vertebraker.
I use that every time I create a wrestler.
Yeah.
The vertebraker was it was one of those things that like I've and again I don't know everything about wrestling, no one does, but just like to the intricacies of moves, like that just seems like move. I know it wasn't WWE for a long time, but it feels like that's just one of those moves that should have been on a ban list, like at all times. Like it just looks like it could go so wrong in so many ways, but he was extremely fluid with it. He was great as Shane Helms, of course. Again, as Jeremy spoke, we loved him as a Hurricane, but even when he transitioned out of the Hurricane as the Cruiserweight champ in WWE, and he was Gregory Helms.
Yeah.
It was still great.
Ironically, the last great Cruiserweight champion for both divisions.
At both eras, if you think about it, it was Shane Helms, Gregory Helms. Yeah, absolutely.
Note to self, if you ever want to kill your Cruiserweight division, make Helms your champ.
Don't do that. Don't you put that first on him, Ricky Bobby. No.
He does a shoot interview after he gets fired the first time from the WWE, where he says he knew the WWE Cruiserweight division was dead when the Cruiserweight champion is a foot taller and 60 pounds heavier, because the heavyweight champion at the time was Ray.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is what it is. Well, these are just some of the great cruiserweights, but I want to talk about this kind of momentarily. Like, one of the great things the cruiserweight division was known for was for matches, and we're going to give you kind of a list of matches, but when you're talking about cruiserweight matches at WCW, there's only one motherfucking cruiserweight. I mean, here, come on, it's the fucking GOAT. But no, here, seriously, these are some great matches. You should check them out on the Peacock. That is.
He said it all.
I forgot where I was.
We're not talking scrambled porn anymore, Chrissy. Okay.
No, he said it all here. He said that to me.
We said after the pod. After the pod, we talk about it.
So he said that to me offline while we were waiting for you two, and I was like, "I'm happy you did not say that online while they're here," and yet he did it.
I had to get it in, brother.
Baby, listen, I'm going to give y'all one day in the Familia group chat, and you're going to realize why we are the way we are. Trust me.
I have no idea what you are talking about. I am a good noodle.
But here's a list of some matches.
We're going to see if that keeps.
I feel like that's a bigger way than my doctor telling me I'm going to walk again.
So Mike mentioned this one earlier. Rey Mysterio Jr. against Dean Malenko, Great American Bash 96. Awesome match. Check it out. List of here, and these are going to be Rey ones off the bat. Rey Mysterio Jr. against Psychosis from Bash at the Beach 96. Fucking amazing match. Great opener. Rey Mysterio, Dean Malenko, Halloween Havoc 96. Awesome. Another one, Rey Mysterio against Ultimo Dragon for World War III 96. Incredible. Even you go to Starrcade 96, Rey Mysterio Jr. against Jushin Thunder Liger. I mean, 96 was perfect. Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit from Brawl 1996. Incredible matchup. Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Starrcade 97. Dean Malenko, Ultimo Dragon, Starrcade 96. Awesome. Hey, we mentioned it earlier. Rey Mysterio, Kidman, and Hoovy from Starrcade 98. Another great matchup, Blitzkrieg against Juventud Guerrero, Starrcade 9 or Spring Stampede 1998. But I mean, let's just talk about it. It is arguably the greatest match in WCW history. God damn, are we still talking about Van Hammer? Jesus, Peacock. I bet Best Scout is lactating right now at this episode, but no, the GOAT of matches. Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, Halloween Havoc 97. It's on everybody's list. If you're showing, I remember when I was getting B-roll into wrestling, right? And it was like, hey, give me a list of matches to watch. And we sat down and we watched some matches.
I was there on that stream.
Yeah.
Came up
it was
with that
cool.
list.
Yeah. And it was the first time, I think, Mike, that's the first time you and I ever really interacted. I think that's the first time Dad Hat and I ever interacted.
We were all hanging out.
We were watching wrestling. But one of the matches
we were on,
that won't be named. But no, one of the matches we watched, it was Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. I mean, in my opinion, I think it is the greatest match in World Championship Wrestling history. I mean, this is a match that's been lauded. It's been looked back on. I mean, you think of everything from the what was on the line in that matchup with the Mask of Rey,
title and the
mask. Cruiserweight title. Like the greatness, like this was like prime Eddie heel in WCW. It was fucking great. the physicality of this matchup, the drama, even we can remember the gear was sick. Eddie's tights, the gold with the black, and Ray's iconic like tribute to like the Phantom, the purple. Oh my god, everything about this match is fucking incredible. I want to get each of your thoughts on Ray and Eddie from Havoc '97.
This match was like it was a cultural shift. So much so to the point where Rey Mysterio's son, decades later, in his debut WrestleMania match against his own father, made reference to the Phantom gear from Halloween Havoc. And that gear is so ingrained in the mindset of the wrestling like community that we barely saw him peel off the hood and we knew immediately what the connection was. We knew what it was from the cut of the mask, from the style of purple that they used. We knew what it was referring to. This is the match. I think we've all said this in some way, shape, or form across our careers as wrestling fans. Like, there's a list of 10 matches you give your friend who has never seen wrestling in their life. This match is on it. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter what style of wrestling you enjoy. You're putting this match on your list. Once again, just knowing that two of the best to ever do it, so much so to the point where it's undeniable. I've never seen an Eddie denier. I've never seen a Ray denier when it comes to their skill, when it comes to how good they were in the ring. So just knowing, once again, this is just me being selfish for the sake of being selfish, but knowing that two of the most undisputed talents in the like history of professional wrestling are two Latin men, I can die happy. I know for a fact that when, you know, like if there's ever, you know, like a National History Museum style exhibit of professional wrestling, that two people that are going to be placed on pedestals will be Eddie Guerrero and will be Rey Mysterio. And just knowing that something close to my culture is considered the greatest at something, and is especially something that I keep to hold near and dear to my heart, I'll always love that. I'll always love them both for that dearly. And just thinking back to WCW and thinking back to that match and thinking back to Halloween Havoc, it's one of those matches where, just like with Starrcade, it's like, fuck, I'm gonna have to go turn that on after we hang this up, aren't we? I'm gonna go have to cue that up. And that's just the importance of when everything kind of like all the planets kind of align. And that's what felt like happened for Eddie and Ray in that moment. Like, they're both great. We know they're both great, but there's a difference between great and what happened that night. It felt like there was pixie dust involved. It felt like someone said a prayer. It felt like something very specific happened on that night. Because for that match to go off the way that it did, for it to be as amazing as it was, for us to still be talking about it to this day, it's either something supernatural or it's just that Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio are just that damn good. And the supernatural has yet to be proven. So honestly, it might just be that Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio were just that damn good.
Yeah. Yeah, 110% agreed. Mike, buddy, like, your thoughts on this amazing matchup?
It's my favorite match of all time. It's a match I watch at least once a month. And Christy put it out there that Dominic, paid tribute to that match. And then in 2021, happened in 2020, Santo Escobar wore the pants.
Yeah, the actual legit pants.
When he wrestled at NXT's Halloween Havoc. Like, that's how important that match is. That he asked Ray, hey, I want to pay tribute to that match. And Ray's like, how about you just wear the pants? Like, I still have those. Wear them. He's like, okay.
What are you going to do? Say no?
Yeah.
I twisted my arm, Ray.
He's like, okay, I'll wear the pants. Like, that's how important Ray, not only are Ray and Eddie to, like, their current wrestlers, but how important that match is to the culture of pro wrestling, that people want to pay tribute to that match any way they can.
Absolutely. Well, since we've all kind of brought up one piece of it, also paying homage, but also kind of taking a dig to it, during his feud with Rey Mysterio, Seth Rollins wore tribute gear to Ray's
Yeah.
Halloween Havoc gear. I actually think my Jace has the action figure around here somewhere.
I
But
forgot they
yeah,
made an action figure out of that situation.
Oh, they did, didn't
Yeah.
they? Yeah.
it's fine. We'll find it later. I'll find it later and post a picture of it or something. But yeah, that match, like there are certain wrestling that like I talk all the time about moments in wrestling that you remember. You remember specific moments that really, you take a snapshot in your brain of this moment in time. But for me, I remember the entire match, no matter how long it's been since I've seen it. I remember the smallest details from the I'm not gonna say uncomfortably, but the ungodly amount of how wet Eddie's hair is when he walks to the ring. You brought up a picture of it. We don't have it at location, but it's wait, no, wrong way.
You're right
It's
in the
this
back.
Rollins
There we
gear.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have this action figure
Wild.
somewhere in our home, but yes, yeah, like Eddie coming down to the ring, just stone faced. The Phantom gear, which was the top and his top and his mask were one piece, which made the pull from Eddie pulling the mask off look more and so much more impactful. The moonsault to the DDT spot, the Frankensteiner spot, like the match is so fluid and so good, and there's no hyperbole. And again, I don't take anything away from it being MJ's favorite match of all time because it's one of those matches that deserves to be in the conversation for someone's greatest match of all time. But it's so it almost like it shouldn't have happened because in 97 it was the land of the giants in WCW and in WWF. Like you had these two guys. First of all, just as a quick side note pivot, the stage for Halloween Havoc 97 with the pumpkin and the big
Beautiful.
demon goblin thing, one of my favorite wrestling sets, period, point blank.
Yeah.
Someone bring it back. Someone redo it. I don't care. WWE, AEW.
We love a good Halloween aesthetic.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
loved it
wonderful.
with the graveyard and everything like that. But it's, again, just on a I hate to say random because, of course, pay-per-views are pay-per-views, but on a random night in October in 1997, two smaller professional wrestlers gave you one of the greatest matches, not only in WCW, but in wrestling history. Here we are almost 20 years on, and back in 2022, when Ray was the cover athlete for WWE 2K, and of course, the cover athlete always gets the showcase story mode. Instantly, as soon as I saw Ray was on the cover, I was like, if they don't have Halloween Havoc 97 as part of that freaking story mode, I'm going to be so upset. I'm going to be so pissed. And it was, and they even included a Rey Mysterio 97 of him in that gear, and
Yeah.
it's so clean. It's such a good gear. It's one of my favorite Ray gears ever. But man, it's just, again, like we can throw all of the words around and all of the compliments and high praise and everything like that, but we all witnessed it, and we've all since witnessed it multiple times since then. Like it's that damn good. There's no other way to put it. It's such a good match. And I agree with Chrissy. If somebody came up to me and was like, hey, I want to get into wrestling, give me 3 matches to watch, one of the first ones I'm giving them is Halloween Havoc 97, Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio Jr. It's great, man. And I know we didn't really touch on this, but for me, there is a distinction between Rey Mysterio and Rey Mysterio Jr. Like the timeline. So when someone says like, oh, okay, it's Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio, I was like, no, it's Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio Jr. And they're like, isn't it the same person? I was like, technically, yeah, but it's so much more than that. It's so much more than just dropping off the surname. It's so good, man. And I'm with Chrissy. After this podcast is over, I'm gonna get on Peacock and rewatch it
I'm a
along
FaceTime
with.
pad and we're gonna watch it together.
We'll watch it together.
So I got chili tater tots waiting for me, and
Ooh,
that match
I'm
is,
going to Mike's house. Wait a minute.
Oh,
Hold on.
let's go.
and that match is definitely going to get on. I might go on a
It's
cruiserweight.
going to be Starrcade 98 and Halloween Havoc.
Yeah,
There you go.
Cheesy tater tots, and mezcal. And by the time the night's over, I might end up in MJ's wheelchair rolling around.
there you go, man.
By the
Well-
way, the fact that that's happened with multiple of my friends where they just borrow my wheelchair while drunk is actually hilarious. Chrissy,
This
I
is
don't
the
have.
thing.
You know what?
I hang out with the rappers who don't make good choices.
What state are you in again, babes?
Washington.
Like West Coast Washington?
Yeah.
Oh, the fucking Twilight place? Mike,
Hey,
I was
no,
visiting.
I do not talk about no.
Are you in Florida?
No, not even
Are you in
close.
Schwartz, Mike?
Fucking
No,
Mike.
How about here? I got you, MJ. We'll talk about let's talk about Kurt Cobain, Washington. We'll go with that. That's a better reference. That's
Yeah,
why
there you go.
we'll go with
I'm
Kurt
more of
Cobain.
a Kurt Cobain, Macklemore, like
Macklemore ain't helping you, babe.
right,
Don't
all
say
right.
that.
Not the best reference. Not the best one.
I'm gonna shop sometime. We're not 20 pounds.
What?
Kurt
Yeah.
Cobain.
This
Well,
is fucking
again, here to save you, MJ. Brian Danielson, Washington. We'll go with that.
There you go.
We'll go.
Yeah,
with that.
Word. There you go.
Darby Allen, Nick Wayne.
Yeah, there
Washington.
you go. There's some good
I
stuff
love that
there.
there's Swerve, there's Daniel, and there's
Swerve.
Darby, and you choose on purpose.
Oh,
Oh, Lord, I love you.
I was trying
Who
to
knows
shoot
if Swerve's gonna? Who knows if
What?
Swerve's gonna be in Washington much longer? His house just burnt down.
oh, we went
So
there.
I
Yes.
have to make a video about this tomorrow. That house, by the way, people need to know. Swerve, he spent 2 weeks here in Washington. So me and Swerve are actually
You
born at the same.
ruined it. You
So me-
fucking ruined it, Mike. No.
So me and Swerve were actually born at the same hospital, military
shit.
hospital, Madigan. But he moved right to Germany, and then they moved to Pennsylvania when he was 9.
Well,
So that house was in Pennsylvania.
Oh my God.
pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. No. Hey, as we're getting down to our conversation here on Cruiserweights, we've talked about some greats. I wanna leave you all with this. Everybody talks about it. Mount Rushmores. I want to know what's your Mount Rushmore of Cruiserweights.
Are we just doing WCW for the sake of the episode or overall?
Let's just say, for the sake of this episode, WCW. How's that? Mount Rushmore of WCW Cruiserweights.
Patrick, darling, would you like to go first?
Sure. I mean, of course, my first two are Eddie and Ray. Like, of course, that's goes without saying. I'm gonna go Eddie, Ray, Dean, and this again, it's just personal bias, just on my enjoyment of watching him wrestle. I'm putting Alex Wright.
Oh, I love that. I love Alex Wright, man.
No disrespect to Jericho or Hoovy or Psychosis or anybody like, but I just got so much enjoyment of watching Alex Wright wrestle. So yeah, I'm putting Alex Wright up there with mine. So I have Eddie, Ray, Dean, and Alex Wright.
I love that. That's a solid 4. Mike, what about you, buddy?
It's Eddie, Ray, Billy Kidman, and that 4th spot is probably gonna have to go to actually a guy we did not speak about. 6.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, we
Ooh.
forgot to mention 6. Yeah. Can't forget about X-Pac, Sean Waltman. Yeah.
1,
That's
2, 3,
interesting.
Kid,
Yeah.
The Kid,
Yeah.
6-Pac. God, that dude had so many names. He's like Diddy.
Chrissy, what about you?
Eddie, Ray, Dean, Lance. All the
Really?
absolute best.
You don't have Kidman on your list?
I love
Shame.
him.
Honestly, with how
I love
much he's been kissing Billy Kidman's butt all night, I thought it was gonna be the 4th spot.
Baby, listen, I got other plans for Billy Kidman. He ain't got to worry about this list. I got other plans for Billy Kidman. This list ain't one of them. But
Mount Rushmore includes a carving of people's faces. She has a carving of Billy Kidman's everything else.
I'm so happy I did not drink my water.
I focus on the important things. With Eddie, Ray, Dean, and Lance, it's literally they're all the absolute best in their fields in the division that is cruiserweight. Eddie is the best tactical luchador. Ray is the best high flying luchador. Dean Malenko is the best at holds. Lance is the best at non-lucha style, cruiserweight style technician moves. I love Billy. I love Juventud. I love Psychosis. I love them all. But in reality, these wrestlers were always chasing the shadow of Eddie, Dean, Lance, and Ray. That's why they're my Mount Rushmore.
Solid. It's a solid 4. So for me, I got to go Dean Malenko, Rey Mysterio, of course. Those are like the obvious. Personal choice, I'm going to have Ultimo Dragon on my list.
That's a good one.
Now, let me hear you out and explain why this man's not. I love Eddie Guerrero. He's not on my list, but mainly because I think of Eddie more so of just like overall wrestler. Like I don't classify him specifically as a cruiserweight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why he's not on.
That was about to cuss you out.
But you'll understand. You'll understand when I list my 4th person, and this is somehow a person we haven't talked about. But my 4th Mount Rushmore is the great Tokyo Magnum. I'm fucking with you. It's Billy Kidman. Does anybody even remember Tokyo Magnum?
No,
I do.
I was biting the back of my tongue. I love you, cousin. I do. I was concerned. I was wondering if I was about to that Prime bottle.
I was about to come out this shirt. I was going to be like, you left off Eddie for Tokyo Magnum.
I could never. No. I just think.
Remember Tokyo Magnum.
I mean, honestly, Jerry, you should have kept Tokyo Magnum because Pat said that he was going to come out of his shirt. So I think we screwed ourselves out on that one.
Well, that's that. See, I don't know, Chris. We ain't giving that shit away for free. No. You're going to have to pay for that exclusive content. Oh, yeah.
We're working on the Patreon right now, babe. Don't worry. I got you. I got you.
Yes, Queen. Do it. But yeah, seriously.
JL.
Oh, JL was a great one, too. Like, seriously. Jerry Lynn, he was in that division, too. So, but you get the idea here, folks.
Absolutely. Billy
there's
should
so
be
many
on someone's list. Like, he should.
Yeah. But there's so many great cruiserweights, and the cruiserweight division was just it was a wonderful time. It was a once in a lifetime thing. That division just to me clearly it was what gave WCW the edge in the Monday Night War, and I don't care what anybody else says. That is why they won 83 weeks of the Monday Night War. I'm just saying.
They fell on their own sword at the end. That was the problem.
And they did, yeah. So. Well, as we always do here on Learning the Ropes, before we bid you adieu for the evening, we got to close it out with a little plug-a-palooza. Chrissy, please tell us where we can find your amazing face.
All right, babies, we'll get ready because it's going to be a lot. My name is Chrissy Tina across all social media platforms. You can find me on X, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. I run with my amazing faction, the Familia, who my co-host for our TikTok live on Saturdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, is sitting right next to me in virtual space, where we do NXT Rewind, where we watch NXTs in NXT takeovers and just reminisce over the good old times. Because as we all know, real life sucks, but wrestling makes it a lot better. You can catch us on runtheropes.shop, where we all have amazing merch. I have merch. Pat has merch. The people who I love the most in this world have merch. We are so grateful once again, XL, Mike, for you guys to have us on here. When we started this off in April, it was just me and Brian. Pat was the first person that we brought on, and I really didn't think this was going to go anywhere but like a really small group chat and like a lot of like memes being thrown back and forth between people. But through all of the work that we've done, working with you guys and working with Colt TV and PW60 and just we're oh my god, just like everybody, like Dad Hat, Brett, Sienna, like your entire crew, I love you all to death. You obviously have great taste because you find Pat just as charming and as alluring as I do. That's really the only reason why he's my co-host. I just like looking at him. He really doesn't add much to the plate. I mean, he ended up being smart, but that was like not the major thing I was looking for when I got him. It just ended up being like a bonus, you know? Like, I'm sure that's the same reason why you have Mike here. But when I say that, as we've all trauma bonded tonight over the thing that we love most in this world, which is wrestling, those are the moments that really helped me realize like just how much of an impact wrestling's had on me. Because I now have some of the people who I love dearest in my life on this pod with me, and you're all in different places. And I hate it, but if it wasn't for wrestling, I would not have been able to meet the amazing minds such as yourselves. And I'm so incredibly grateful for that. So from the bottom of my heart, as always, I love you guys the most. You guys are cousins forever. If y'all need anything, we're here. And when you can't trust your friends, you can always trust your family.
Damn straight. We love you too, cuz. Pat, you beautiful, gorgeous man, you. Tell us. I had to get a couple more in. Tell us where we can see your beautiful face, my friend.
Let's see if I can do this.
Blushing.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, guys and girls, girls and guys, gather round and feast your eyes because you are now tuned in to the one who is wise. My name is Patrick, aka Pat the Wiseman. You can follow me on TikTok at Pat the Wiseman, where I make wrestling content and roast people, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of it because although, as Jeremy keeps stating, I am an attractive man, I can go pretty to petty in just one letter. I encourage you all to go to runtheropes.shop, as Chrissy mentioned. Get yourself some La Familia merch. Become a primo or a prima. Become a cousin. Buy yourself some merch. I have merch. Looks really good. It'll look good on you. Use the code WISEMAN15 for 15% off. You can tune in to me and Chrissy every Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central for NXT Rewind. Tune in next Wednesday on TikTok Live with me and Chrissy and other members of the Familia, where we will be going part 2 or round 2, another interview with former MLW World Heavyweight Champion Alex Kane.
Let's go.
We're giving this. He's gracious enough to sit down with us again, so that will be next Wednesday. Not sure on the time. We gotta
9
p.m. Eastern. Okay, so we'll be sitting down with Alex again. Head over to World Championship Wreckage, and you can catch me and MJ Place doing fantasy booking, where we book an 8-match card of the New Generation era versus the Ruthless Aggression era. No spoilers, but it was a lot of fun, and we put on 2 banger pay-per-view matches, or pay-per-view cards, excuse me. Yeah. And as I like to say, there are terrible things going on in humanity, and sometimes it's hard to hold on to your sanity, but life's always better when you're here with the family. And as an add-on, be smart, don't be dopes. Make sure you tune in to Learning the Ropes. I am Pat the Wiseman. Thank you all for having me.
Shit.
And let me just tell y'all right now, if y'all might as well buy the shirts of mine and Patrick's from runtheropes.shop, because the only way you're going to get either me or Patrick on your body is through those shirts. So if you're going to shoot your shot, the best way to do it is by buying our merch.
I mean, hey, $50 is $50.
The best $50, Joy.
Yeah, I can't follow this up. That's OJ.
No, we have to make tiers, Patrick. We can't just be giving it all away for $50. We got to see what's being given out at 50, and then me and Jeremy got to like test run it, and then we'll release it.
Y'all get the family discount.
Oh, okay. That's good to know, brother.
I can't follow any of this.
Mike, where can we find you, bro? I'm sorry, I got the papers over here.
I don't know how to follow any of that up. That was wild. Pat Wiseman rapped, and that was cool. That was.
Oh, that could make me commit crime. Best Scout knows. I guarantee you. I know Best Scout so good. That man is lactating right now. I'm just saying.
Best Scout
it's funny.
Best Scout is
during this entire podcast, and over 2 hours been going on. About midway through, I got a notification on my phone from TikTok that Best Scout followed me.
Thanks, baby. Oh, Mike,
congratulations, you made it, my friend.
Mike
I
and
mean,
XLJ, listen, I'm not sure how y'all deal with your families and how y'all deal with your cousins, but Pat and I are Latin, and we tend to show our affection for our cousins via competitive natures, via trash talking, things of that nature. So from what I heard, Mike,
in all families.
from what I heard, y'all think that y'all can take an Encyclopedia Richie Mars.
This
From what
is
I heard.
this is facts.
From what I heard.
We're
So
going into business.
there's been a message relayed to me to give to you. The clock's ticking, Mike.
I'm cool with that.
Look at
So
look
you
at
tell us
All right.
when you're ready, and God only knows if you feel like you need the help, because you might. You might. If you need to give us some numbers, me and Pat can be there real easy.
All right.
So you let us know when you're ready. And we
I'm
can
ready
give
to
you
stand up to the challenge, which is more than you can do. Anyway,
Said it.
Cut the camera. Cut the camera.
End scene. No. Oh goddamn, that was great.
And we're out of time.
On that note, but no, like, oh man, you got me fucking speechless. Shit.
And I haven't even got the whole like plug-in thing happening yet.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's where we were at. I was like, where the fuck were we? Yeah, Mike, tell us where we can find you, bro.
Oh God, MJ Duplessis 1992 on all my social medias. You can catch me here on Cold TV. My voice cracking. And then I'll change Wreckage.
Yes, Wreckage. Oh God, you got us, man. We love our family. We love our cousins. We love you all. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, you can catch a replay PW60 as well as our emergence vlog. And because fuck it, why not? I'm going to show you this one.
Look at that. Look at the definition. Look at the definition. Huh? Look at them quads, baby. Look at them quads. Maybe that's not YouTube friendly, but look at them quads. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
what is happening?
Thank you so much.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Learning the Ropes. We appreciate you, Chrissy and Pat, for joining us tonight. Cannot wait to do it again, my friend. Oh, yep. And as Best Scout says, them quads. Thank you all so much. We love you all, and we can't wait to see you next time on another episode of Learning the Ropes. Everybody, take care and have an amazing week.
Thank you.